The brass handle felt cold against my palm as I yanked open the heavy mahogany door. Rain plastered my blonde hair to my face, water dripping from the hem of my coat onto the pristine marble floor. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I could hear it over the soft classical music floating through the elegant dining room. I shouldn't be here. I couldn't afford to be here. But Nathan's voice still echoed in my ears from the phone call 10 minutes ago, low and threatening. "I see you, Rachel. Blue coat, corner of 5th and Madison. You can't hide from me." My eyes swept the restaurant's interior. La Stessa. The name alone commanded respect in this city. Cream-colored walls adorned with original Italian paintings, tables draped in ivory linen, crystal chandeliers casting warm light over the handful of well-dressed patrons who looked like they belonged in a world I only glimpsed through library books. A maitre d' appeared before me, his expression shifting from welcoming to subtly disapproving as he took in my soaked appearance. My sensible flats squeaked against the marble. My practical wool coat, purchased on sale 3 years ago, looked shabby next to the designer pieces hanging on the elegant coat rack. "Good evening, miss. Do you have a reservation?" His tone suggested he already knew the answer. My voice caught. Through the tall windows behind him, I could see the street. Any moment, Nathan could walk past. Could see me. The thought made my stomach clench with familiar dread. "I'm meeting someone," I heard myself say. The lie tasted bitter. "Table for Castellano." Something flickered across the maitre d's face. Surprise, then wariness. His eyes traveled over me again, this time with calculation rather than dismissal. "Mr. Castellano's table?" He cleared his throat. "I wasn't informed of a guest. Last-minute arrangement." I forced confidence into my voice, even as my hands trembled. "May I be seated? I'm quite wet, as you can see." For a long moment he studied me. I held his gaze, channeling every ounce of desperate determination I possessed. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Of course. This way, please." He led me through the dining room. I felt eyes following us, curious glances from other patrons, whispered comments I couldn't quite hear. The maitre d' stopped at a corner table, partially secluded by a decorative screen. It offered a clear view of the entire restaurant and both entrances. A strategic position. "Mr. Castellano will be arriving shortly," he said, pulling out a chair. "May I take your coat?" "No, thank you." I couldn't surrender that small barrier between myself and the world. Not yet. He hesitated, then nodded. "Your server will be with you momentarily. And miss?" His voice dropped lower. "Mr. Castellano values punctuality and honesty. I hope you know what you're doing." The word sent a chill down my spine, but I was already committed. I'd walked into this trap of my own making. Now I had to survive it. After he departed, I finally allowed myself to breathe. The chair's leather was soft, expensive. The table setting before me probably cost more than my weekly paycheck. Heavy silverware with ornate handles. Crystal wine glasses that caught the light like captured rainbows. A small vase holding a single white orchid. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out with shaking hands. "Nathan." "Where did you go?" "Don't play games with me, Rachel. You know how this ends." I turned the phone face down on the table, fighting the urge to throw it across the room. 14 months. That's how long it had been since I'd left him. Since I'd gathered what little courage I possessed and walked out of the apartment we'd shared, leaving behind everything except my books and my cat. 14 months of him finding me anyway. At work, where I'd had to quit my position at the university library. At my mother's house, forcing me to cut contact to keep her safe. At the small branch library in Queens, where I'd finally found employment again, leading to a restraining order that Nathan violated with impunity. The police couldn't help. Nathan was careful. Too careful. He never touched me in public, never sent written threats. His messages were always vague enough to deny intent. And his connections, through his position as an accountant for people whose names made police officers go quiet, meant my complaints disappeared into bureaucratic black holes. "Your water, miss." I jumped as a server appeared, placing a glass of sparkling water before me. He was young, perhaps 25, with carefully neutral features. "Thank you," I managed. "Would you care for a cocktail while you wait? The Negroni is particularly excellent this evening." "Just water is fine." He nodded and withdrew, but I caught his curious glance at my damp coat, my lack of jewelry, my trembling hands. I didn't fit here. Anyone could see that. I should leave. Should walk out before this Castellano person arrived and discovered my deception. But where would I go? Back to the street where Nathan was likely still searching. To my tiny studio apartment with its useless locks. I'd tried everything legal. Restraining orders, police reports. Changing my phone number 3 times. Nothing worked. Nathan always found me. Always reminded me that I belonged to him. That leaving him was a mistake he intended to correct. Through the window, I saw a black car pull up to the curb. Sleek, expensive, with tinted windows that reflected the streetlights. A man in a dark suit emerged from the driver's seat, opening the rear door with practiced precision. My breath caught. The man who stepped out was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that filled out his charcoal suit perfectly. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Strong jaw, high cheekbones, a nose that had perhaps been broken once but only added character. He moved with fluid grace, every gesture controlled and purposeful. Even from this distance, I could sense the power radiating from him. The way the doorman straightened. The quick nod from a passing pedestrian who recognized him. This was a man accustomed to respect, to deference, to getting exactly what he wanted. Roman Castellano. It had to be. Panic clawed at my throat. What had I done? I'd claimed a seat at this man's private table based on a name I'd overheard at the library last week. 2 businessmen discussing a meeting at La Stessa with someone too important to stand up. I'd gambled that the reservation would exist, that I could hide here for an hour until Nathan gave up his search. I hadn't considered what would happen when the actual reservation holder arrived. The entrance door opened. Castellano walked in, flanked by 2 men who were clearly security. The maître d' rushed forward, greeting him with obvious deference. They spoke quietly, too low for me to hear. But I saw the exact moment the maître d' gestured toward my table. Saw Castellano's gaze shift in my direction. Our eyes met across the dining room. His were dark, almost black in the dim lighting, with an intensity that froze me in place. For a long moment, he simply looked at me. Not with anger, not with surprise, but with a calculating interest that made my pulse race for entirely different reasons than fear of Nathan. Then he moved, straight toward me, his security trailing behind. Other diners seemed to sense something, conversations faltering as he passed. He commanded the space without effort, without trying. It was simply who he was. I should run, should apologize and flee before whatever this was became worse than Nathan's stalking. But my legs wouldn't obey. I sat frozen, watching him approach like a rabbit watching a wolf, knowing escape was impossible but unable to look away. He reached the table. Up close, he was even more imposing. Not just his height and build, but something deeper. An aura of controlled danger that made every instinct I possessed scream warnings I was too desperate to heed. "You're in my seat." His voice was deep, carrying a slight Italian accent that softened certain consonants. Not angry, simply stating a fact. My voice failed. I cleared my throat, tried again. "I'm sorry. I can explain." One dark eyebrow rose slightly. "Can you?" He pulled out the chair across from me, sitting with elegant economy of movement. His security took positions nearby, close enough to intervene if needed, but far enough to offer an illusion of privacy. A server materialized instantly. "Mr. Castellano, your usual, please, and bring a menu for my guest." He never took his eyes off me. The server hurried away. We sat in silence, Castellano studying me with that unnerving intensity, while I struggled to formulate words that might salvage this disaster. "So," he said finally, "you're either very brave or very desperate. Which is it?" The blunt question caught me off guard. I'd expected anger, threats, demands for explanation. Not this calm curiosity. "Desperate," I admitted. Honesty seemed the only currency I had left. "And your name?" "Rachel Morrison." He nodded slightly, as if confirming something. "Tell me, Rachel Morrison, what drives a woman to steal a reservation at one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city and claim my private table?" I needed somewhere safe. The words spilled out before I could stop them. "Just for an hour. Someone is following me, and I thought if I could hide somewhere public but expensive enough that he wouldn't look." I trailed off, realizing how insane it sounded. "He?" Castellano's expression didn't change, but something sharpened in his gaze. "An ex-boyfriend? Ex-fiancé?" I pulled at a loose thread on my coat. "Nathan Pierce. He won't accept that I left him. He uses his connections to track me. His employers make it hard for me to get real help. His employers." Not a question. I met his eyes. "I'm a librarian, Mr. Castellano. I'm not part of your world. But I recognize the signs when someone has protection from people who make problems disappear. Nathan has that protection. I don't." For a long moment, he was silent. Then the corner of his mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. "You know who I am." "I know your name. I know this table is always reserved for you. I know that people in this city speak of you with respect and fear." I straightened my spine. "I don't know details, and I don't want to. I just needed an hour of safety." The server returned with Castellano's drink, something amber in a crystal tumbler, and a leather-bound menu he placed before me. I didn't touch it. "Nathan Pierce," Castellano repeated, rolling the name over his tongue. "The accountant?" My heart stuttered. "You know him?" "I know of him. He works for the Volkov organization, Russian mob. They handle money laundering mostly, with some drug trafficking and protection rackets." His tone was conversational, as if discussing the weather. "Pierce keeps their books clean enough to avoid federal attention. He's competent, but not particularly imaginative." The casual way he recited this information confirmed what I'd suspected. Castellano was exactly what I'd feared, someone embedded in the criminal underworld that Nathan orbited. Coming here had been a mistake, a terrible, desperate mistake. I should go. I started to rise. "Sit down." It wasn't loud, but the command in his voice made me sink back into the chair automatically. Our eyes met again, and I saw something calculating in his expression. "This man is stalking you," he said, "threatening you, using his connections to avoid legal consequences." "Yes. And you came here hoping my reputation would provide temporary shelter." I nodded, unable to trust my voice. "Interesting." He took a sip of his drink, never breaking eye contact. "Tell me, Rachel, when you work at a library, I assume you have access to many records, financial documents, historical archives, that sort of thing?" My stomach clenched with new fear. "I'm a reference librarian. I help people research topics. I don't have access to anything sensitive." "But you know how to find information, how to trace connections, how to build a picture from scattered pieces." It wasn't a question. "Why does that matter?" "Because Nathan Pierce is a liability to his employers. He's sloppy when he's emotional, leaves trails. His obsession with you could expose vulnerabilities in the Volkov organization." Castellano leaned back, His posture relaxed, but his eyes sharp. That makes you valuable. I don't know anything about his work. Not yet. He smiled then, and it was like watching a predator bare its teeth. But you could, if you were properly motivated and protected. Understanding dawned, cold and terrible. You want me to spy on Nathan. I want you to do what you already do. Research, gather information, notice patterns. He gestured dismissively. The Volkovs and I have been circling each other for years. They want my territory. I want them eliminated. Nathan Pierce's emotional vulnerability regarding you presents an opportunity. No. I shook my head. Absolutely not. I came here to hide for an hour, not to become part of a mob war. You became part of it the moment Nathan Pierce decided you belonged to him. Castellano's voice hardened. Did you think this would simply stop? That he would wake up one day and forget about you? Men like Nathan don't let go. They escalate. His words struck deep because they echoed my own fears, the fear that had driven me to this desperate gambit in the first place. You can't help me, I whispered. I can. I'm offering to. In exchange for me becoming your informant, in exchange for protection. He leaned forward slightly. Real protection, Rachel. The kind that makes men like Nathan Pierce disappear from your life permanently. My phone buzzed again. I didn't need to look to know it was Nathan. He'd be getting more aggressive now, more desperate. The restaurant window showed the street outside, rain-slicked and dark. He was out there somewhere, hunting me. What exactly are you offering? I heard myself ask. Sanctuary, a place where Nathan can't reach you. Security that actually responds when you're threatened. The resources of my organization ensuring your safety. Castellano's gaze was steady. And in return, you help me understand Nathan's patterns, his work, his connection to the Volkovs. You were engaged to him for 2 years. You know him better than anyone. I don't know his criminal activities, but you know the man, his habits, his weaknesses, his fears. Castellano's smile was cold. That's more valuable than you realize. I should refuse. Should walk out of this restaurant and take my chances with Nathan's stalking, with restraining orders that didn't work, with a system that couldn't or wouldn't protect me. But I was so tired. Tired of being afraid. Tired of running. Tired of Nathan's voice in my ear, his shadow behind every corner. If I agree, I said slowly, what would this protection look like? You would live under my security, one of my properties, with guards who answer to me. Nathan wouldn't be able to get within a block of you. I have a job, a life. You would keep both. My guards would ensure your safety, not your imprisonment. You'd simply be under my protection. The words hung between us, weighted with meaning I didn't fully understand. But I understood enough to know that accepting meant entering a world I'd spent my life avoiding. A world of violence and power and transactions measured in fear. My phone buzzed again. Insistent. Castellano's eyes flicked to it. He's persistent. He always is. Say yes, Rachel. Let me be the weapon you've needed. I thought about the last 14 months, the constant fear, the way Nathan's smile had become a threat, the isolation I'd imposed on myself to keep others safe, the sleepless nights and locked doors that never felt secure enough. And I thought about the man across from me, dangerous and powerful and offering a solution no one else could provide. Perhaps entering his world wasn't so different from the nightmare I was already living. Except this time, I'd have a powerful protector instead of a relentless predator. Yes, I whispered. I accept. Castellano's smile was satisfied. Wise choice. He pulled out his phone, typing something quickly. Within moments, one of his security men appeared at his shoulder. Salvatore will take you to a safe location tonight. Pack what you need from your apartment. Tomorrow we'll discuss details. He stood, buttoning his jacket with smooth efficiency. And Rachel, you made the right decision. You'll see. I watched him walk away, wondering if I'd just escaped one cage only to enter another. One that was gilded and protected, but a cage nonetheless. Outside, Nathan was still hunting me. But inside this dangerous new world, I had just gained the most powerful ally possible, or the most dangerous enemy. Only time would tell which. Salvatore was a man of few words. He drove the black Mercedes with practiced efficiency through streets I barely recognized, my small overnight bag clutched in my lap like a lifeline. We'd stopped at my studio apartment long enough for me to throw essentials into the bag. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, the photograph of my mother I kept on the nightstand. 15 minutes, Salvatore had said. I'd managed it in 12, my hands shaking the entire time. Now, 20 minutes later, we pulled up to a building in Tribeca that screamed old money and new security. The kind of place where doormen wore white gloves and residents' names were never displayed in the lobby. Salvatore guided me through a marble entrance hall, past a concierge who nodded with recognition, into a private elevator that required a keycard to operate. Penthouse, Salvatore said, pressing the button marked PH. His first words since we'd left my apartment. The elevator rose smoothly, my reflection staring back at me from polished brass walls. I looked pale, my blonde hair still damp from the rain, my blue eyes too wide. My practical wool coat seemed even shabbier in these surroundings. I looked like what I was. Someone who didn't belong. The doors opened directly into an apartment that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, lights glittering like scattered diamonds against the darkness. Hardwood floors gleamed under recessed lighting. The furniture was modern but warm, leather and wood and stone arranged with elegant precision. Original artwork adorned the walls. I recognized a Rothko that should have been in a museum. This is where I'll be staying? My voice echoed in the vast space. Mr. Castellano's instructions. Salvatore moved through the apartment with familiarity, checking windows that already looked secure, testing locks that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Guest bedroom is down the hall, second door. Kitchen is fully stocked. Security monitors the building entrance and elevator access. You need anything, press 9 on any phone. He handed me 2 key cards. Elevator and apartment. Don't lose them. Don't give them to anyone. When will I see Mr. Castellano again? When he's ready. Salvatore moved toward the door. Get some sleep, Miss Morrison. Tomorrow things get complicated. Then he was gone, and I was alone in a penthouse that probably cost more per month than I made in a year. I stood frozen in the living room, my overnight bag still clutched in my hands, trying to process what I'd agreed to. My phone buzzed. Nathan again. I stared at the screen, at his name appearing like a curse. For the first time in 14 months, I felt something other than fear when I saw it. Something almost like satisfaction. I turned the phone off completely. The guest bedroom was larger than my entire studio apartment. A king-sized bed dominated the space, dressed in linens that felt like silk beneath my tentative fingers. The attached bathroom featured a marble shower, heated floors, and toiletries that came in elegant glass bottles. Through the window, the city sprawled beneath me, distant and manageable from this height. I unpacked my meager belongings, the contents of my overnight bag looking lost in the expansive closet. Then I showered, letting hot water wash away the rain and fear and exhaustion. The bathroom filled with steam scented like eucalyptus and mint. I stayed under the spray until my skin turned pink, until I could almost believe this was real. When I finally crawled into bed, the sheets cool and perfect against my skin, I expected to lie awake for hours. Expected Nathan's voice to echo in my head. Expected panic to creep in now that the adrenaline had faded. Instead, I fell asleep almost immediately, my body surrendering to exhaustion I'd been fighting for months. For the first time since leaving Nathan, I slept through the night without waking to check the locks, without starting at every sound. Whatever else Roman Castellano was, his protection felt real. I woke to sunlight streaming through windows I'd forgotten to curtain. For a disoriented moment, I didn't recognize my surroundings, the expensive bedding, the elegant furniture, the view of the city from an impossible height. Then memory returned in a rush. The restaurant. Castellano. The agreement I'd made. My phone, still off, sat on the nightstand like an accusation. I turned it on, watching notifications flood the screen. 17 missed calls from Nathan. 11 text messages, each more desperate than the last. 3 voicemails I had no intention of listening to. Then, a new message from an unknown number. Car will arrive at 9 a.m. to bring you to the office. Dress professionally. RC. I glanced at the clock. 7:30 a.m. 90 minutes to prepare for whatever Castellano had planned. The closet revealed my limited wardrobe options. I'd grabbed work clothes out of habit. Sensible skirts, blouses that were professional but inexpensive, the single blazer I owned that didn't show its secondhand origins too obviously. I dressed carefully, applying minimal makeup, pulling my hair back in a neat bun. The librarian armor I'd perfected over years of wanting to be taken seriously. At precisely 9 o'clock, my phone buzzed with a message. Salvatore is downstairs. The elevator ride down felt surreal. The concierge smiled at me, as if my presence here was perfectly normal, as if I wasn't an interloper in a world I didn't understand. Salvatore waited outside, holding open the rear door of the same black Mercedes. "Good morning, Miss Morrison," he said, more words than he'd offered last night. "Good morning." I slid into the back seat, the leather cool against my legs. The drive took us to the financial district, to a building that gleamed with glass and steel and corporate power. Salvatore guided me through a lobby that echoed with purposeful footsteps, into another private elevator. This one climbed to the 42nd floor, opening into an office suite that made the penthouse apartment seem modest. The receptionist, an elegant woman in her 50s with silver hair and sharp eyes, looked up as we entered. "Miss Morrison, Mr. Castellano is expecting you." Her gaze swept over me with quick assessment, her expression revealing nothing of her conclusions. She led me through a space that managed to be both intimidating and beautiful. Polished wood floors, art that probably cost millions, windows offering views that made the city feel like a possession rather than a place. Assistants worked at minimalist desks, their designer clothes and quiet efficiency, speaking of a world where excellence was expected, not exceptional. We stopped at a door marked simply with Castellano's name in discreet brass letters. The receptionist knocked once, then opened it, gesturing for me to enter. Roman Castellano stood by the window, his back to me, phone pressed to his ear. He wore a charcoal suit that had clearly been tailored specifically for his frame, the fabric draping perfectly across his broad shoulders. Even motionless, he radiated power. "Handle it," he said into the phone, his voice carrying that note of absolute authority I'd heard last night. "I don't care about their timeline. They work on mine." He ended the call without waiting for a response, turning to face me. In daylight, he was somehow more intimidating than he'd been in the restaurant's dim lighting. His features were sharper, his dark eyes more penetrating. A faint scar cut through his left eyebrow, the only imperfection in otherwise classical Italian handsomeness. "Rachel." He gestured to one of 2 leather chairs positioned across from his desk. "Please, sit." I moved to the chair, hyper-aware of how out of place I looked in this office. My clearance rack blazer versus his bespoke suit. My practical flats versus his handcrafted Italian leather shoes. My entire annual salary probably didn't cover his monthly wardrobe budget. He took the other chair rather than retreating behind his desk, a subtle gesture that somehow made the conversation feel more intimate than professional. His knee was inches from mine, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive with notes of cedar and spice. "How did you sleep?" he asked. The question surprised me with its banality. "Better than I have in months." "Good." He leaned back, studying me with that unnerving intensity. "That will change once we begin." "Begin what, exactly?" "Building a case against Nathan Pierce and, by extension, the Volkov organization." He pulled a tablet from the side table, swiping through screens with practiced efficiency. "I've already started gathering information. Nathan's employment history, his connections, his financial records. But I need context. I need to understand the man behind the numbers. I don't know anything about his criminal activities," I said again. "But you know him. You lived with him for 2 years, were engaged to him for 1. You saw his patterns, his habits, his emotional triggers." Castellano's gaze locked onto mine. "Start with how you met." The memory rose unbidden, bitter-sweet with hindsight. 3 years ago, at a bookstore in Greenwich Village. He was buying a first edition of The Great Gatsby. We started talking about Fitzgerald, about literature, about our favorite passages. He seemed kind, intelligent, passionate about books and art and ideas. Did he mention his work? He said he was an accountant for an import-export company. Made it sound boring. Numbers and spreadsheets and tax codes. I twisted my hands in my lap. I didn't question it. Why would I? He took me to nice restaurants, bought thoughtful gifts, listened when I talked about my work at the library. He made me feel seen. When did that change? The question pierced through carefully maintained defenses. I'd spent so long trying not to think about it, about the slow transformation from charming suitor to controlling fiancé to obsessive stalker. Gradually, I admitted. 6 months in, he started questioning where I went after work, who I talked to, what I wore, framed it as concern, as caring about me. Then he wanted access to my phone, my computer. Said if we were going to get married, we shouldn't have secrets. But you didn't give him access. Not then. But I agreed to share locations with him. Seemed reasonable for safety, he said. Except he'd call if I went anywhere he didn't approve of. Get angry if I didn't respond immediately to his texts. The words were coming faster now. Years of suppressed memory pouring out. By our first anniversary, I couldn't see friends without his permission, couldn't wear clothes he deemed inappropriate, couldn't make decisions without consulting him first. Castellano's expression remained neutral, but something dangerous flickered in his dark eyes. Did he hurt you? Not physically. Not at first. I forced myself to meet his gaze. He was too smart for that. It was always emotional, psychological, making me question my judgment, my worth, isolating me until he was my entire world. When I finally tried to leave, he said he'd kill himself, that his death would be my fault. But you left anyway. I had to. I woke up one morning and realized I couldn't breathe. That if I stayed, there'd be nothing left of Rachel Morrison. Just a shell he'd hollowed out and filled with his expectations. My voice cracked slightly. I waited until he went to work, packed one bag, left my engagement ring on the kitchen counter with a note saying I was sorry, but I couldn't marry him. Stayed with my mother for a week until he found me there, threatened her. That's when I moved to the studio apartment. And he's been hunting you ever since. He calls it love. I laughed bitterly. Says I'm confused, that we belong together, that he's the only one who truly understands me. But what he really means is that I'm his, property he misplaced and wants back. Castellano set down his tablet, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. The movement brought him closer, close enough that I could see gold flecks in his dark eyes. Men like Nathan don't understand love, he said quietly. They understand possession, ownership, control. They mistake obsession for devotion. His jaw tightened. And they're dangerous precisely because they believe their own justifications. You sound like you've known men like him before. I've known many men like him. Usually I have to eliminate them. The casual way he said it made my blood run cold. Eliminate. Such a clean word for something so final. I'm not asking you to kill Nathan, I said quickly. No, you're not. You're asking me to neutralize him, which requires different tactics. Castellano stood, moving to his desk where he retrieved a folder. I've had my people researching the Volkov organization. Nathan keeps their books, but he's not the only accountant they employ. He's, however, the most accessible, the most emotionally volatile. His obsession with you makes him the weakest link. He handed me the folder. Inside were photographs, Nathan entering various buildings, meeting with men I didn't recognize, dining at restaurants that had probably witnessed countless illegal negotiations. There were financial documents covered in numbers that meant nothing to me. Phone records showing call patterns. What am I looking at? I asked. Evidence of Nathan's activity over the past 6 months. We've been watching him, documenting his movements, tracking his communications. What we need now is interpretation. Context that only someone who knows him intimately can provide. I studied the photographs more carefully. One showed Nathan entering a warehouse in Red Hook. In another, he sat across from a heavy-set man at an outdoor cafe, their body language tense. A third captured him talking on his phone, his free hand gesturing emphatically. This one, I pointed to the cafe photo. Nathan only uses that hand gesture when he's anxious, when things aren't going according to plan. Castellano's eyes sharpened. You're certain? I lived with him for 2 years. I learned to read his body language. It was survival. I flipped through more photos, my librarian's mind cataloging patterns, details. And here, the way he's standing. That's his placating posture. He's trying to smooth something over. Excellent. Castellano returned to his chair, pulling it closer to mine so he could see the photos I was examining. His shoulder brushed against mine, the contact sending an unexpected spark through me. This is exactly what I need. Your knowledge of Nathan's psychology combined with my resources. Together, we can build a profile of his vulnerabilities. For the next 2 hours, we went through every photograph, every document. I provided context, when Nathan looked stressed versus angry versus calculating, which meetings seemed routine versus problematic, how his behavior patterns suggested hierarchies in the organization, indicating who held power and who merely followed orders. Castellano listened intently, occasionally interjecting questions that revealed the sharp intelligence behind his powerful presence. He wasn't just a blunt instrument of violence, I realized. He was strategic, thoughtful, patient in ways that made him far more dangerous than simple brutality ever could. You're good at this, he observed, as I identified a pattern in Nathan's meeting locations. Reading people, seeing connections, wasted talent, working in a library. I like working in a library, I countered. Books don't threaten you. They don't try to control you. They just offer knowledge freely. But people do threaten you. They do try to control you. He held my gaze. Perhaps it's time you learn to threaten them back. I'm not violent. Violence isn't the only form of threat. Information is power, Rachel. You're gathering information on Nathan that will destroy him. That's a form of violence, just more elegant. The words should have disturbed me. Instead, they resonated with something dark I'd been suppressing. The part of me that wanted Nathan to suffer as I'd suffered. That wanted him to feel helpless and hunted and afraid. What happens after we have enough information? I asked. We use it to dismantle the Volkov organization from within. Nathan's emotional instability makes him a liability they can't afford. Once we expose that, they'll eliminate him themselves. Clean, efficient, with no connection to me. They'll kill him. They'll remove a problem. Castellano's expression remained neutral. That problem has been terrorizing you for 14 months, has violated restraining orders, stalked you, threatened those you love. The legal system failed you. I'm offering justice of a different variety. He was right. The realization sat heavy in my chest. Everything I'd tried through legal channels had failed. Nathan's connections protected him. His careful manipulation left no evidence police would act on. But this, using his own criminal associations against him, this might actually work. I need air, I said suddenly, standing on shaky legs. Castellano rose smoothly. The terrace. He gestured toward a door I hadn't noticed, nearly invisible against the wood paneling. Outside, the wind whipped at my hair, pulling strands loose from the careful bun. The city spread out below us, vast and indifferent. 42 stories up, the sounds of traffic became a distant hum. I gripped the railing, the metal cold beneath my palms. Regrets already? Castellano had followed me out, standing close enough that I could feel his warmth against the autumn chill. Doubts, I corrected. There's a difference. Tell me. I turned to face him, the wind catching my blazer. Last night I was desperate, afraid. I would have agreed to anything to escape Nathan. But now, in daylight, looking at evidence we're gathering to ensure his death. I paused, searching for words. I'm not sure who I become if I do this. You become someone who survives. His voice was gentle but firm. Someone who refuses to be a victim. Someone who takes control of her own fate, even when the cost is high. Is that who you are? Yes. No hesitation, no apology. My father was killed when I was 19, shot in front of me by rivals who wanted his territory. I could have run, could have abandoned everything he built. Instead, I made myself into someone those rivals feared, someone they couldn't touch. Did you kill the men who murdered your father? Every single one of them. His eyes were dark, fathomless. It took 3 years, but I eliminated each person involved in his death, not out of rage, but out of necessity, to show that touching what was mine had consequences. The casual admission should have terrified me. Instead, it felt almost comforting. This man understood the price of survival in a world where rules didn't protect you, where justice required getting your hands dirty. I'm not like you, I whispered. No, you're not. You're stronger. At my startled look, he continued, I was born into this world. You're choosing to enter it, fully aware of what it costs. That requires a different kind of courage. His hand came up, tucking a wind-loosened strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was surprisingly tender from someone so dangerous. Our eyes met and held, something electric passing between us in the space of a heartbeat. Then my phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Nathan's name flashed on the screen. Castellano glanced at it, his expression hardening. Answer it, he said. Let him hear your voice. Let him think he still has access to you. What? Trust me. Answer the phone, Rachel. With shaking hands, I accepted the call. Hello? Rachel. Nathan's voice was frantic, edged with something between relief and rage. Where the hell have you been? I've been calling all night. Are you okay? Did something happen? Castellano stepped closer, close enough to hear Nathan's voice through the speaker, close enough that his chest nearly touched mine. I'm fine, Nathan. You're not fine. You disappeared. I was worried sick. A pause. Where are you? That's none of your concern anymore. Of course it's my concern. Rachel, whatever is going on, whatever scared you, we can work through it together. Just tell me where you are. Let me come get you. Castellano's hand came to rest on my waist, his touch firm and possessive. His message clear. You're protected now. Nathan can't reach you here." "I'm safe," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "And I don't want to see you." "Stop calling me Nathan. Stop following me. Stop pretending this is about love when it's really about control. Rachel, you're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in 3 years." The words came easier now, emboldened by Castellano's solid presence. "Goodbye, Nathan." I ended the call before he could respond. My hands were shaking. Castellano took the phone gently, powering it down. "Well done." "He's going to escalate now. He'll see this as a challenge." "Good. Let him escalate. Let him make mistakes." Castellano's smile was predatory. Desperate men become sloppy, and sloppy men leave evidence. We stood on that terrace for a long moment, the wind whipping around us, the city sprawling beneath. I'd crossed a threshold, I realized. By answering that call with Castellano beside me, by drawing courage from his presence, I'd declared myself beyond Nathan's reach. And in doing so, I'd bound myself more tightly to the dangerous man who'd offered protection. A man whose interest in me went beyond simple strategic advantage, if the way his hand still rested on my waist was any indication. "Come inside," Castellano said finally. "We have more work to do." I followed him back into the office, the warmth a relief after the biting wind, but part of me remained on that terrace, suspended between my old life and whatever new existence I was stepping into. A life where I was no longer prey, but participant. Where I'd traded one form of captivity for another. Though this cage was gilded, and came with a guardian who called himself protector, while meaning something far more possessive. Castellano closed the terrace door, turning back to me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You did well, Rachel. Better than I expected. What happens now?" "Now," he said, moving to his desk where he pulled out another folder, thicker than the first. "We begin the real work, understanding not just Nathan, but the entire Volkov organization, their structures, their vulnerabilities, their secrets. And you, with your librarian's mind for patterns and connections, are going to help me tear them apart." He handed me the folder. Inside were hundreds of pages. Surveillance photos, financial records, intercepted communications, organizational charts connecting names to faces to crimes. "This is everything?" I asked, overwhelmed by the volume. "This is just the beginning." His smile was dangerous, anticipatory. "Welcome to my world, Rachel Morrison. I hope you're ready for what comes next." I looked down at the folder, at the evidence of an entire criminal empire laid out like a research project, at the man who'd made me his unlikely partner in bringing it down, at my hands, no longer shaking, steady with purpose I hadn't felt in years. "I'm ready," I said, and meant it. Outside, Nathan was likely planning his next move, his obsession driving him toward confrontation. But inside this office, surrounded by evidence and protection, and a dangerous man's unwavering focus, I finally felt something other than fear. I felt powerful. And that, perhaps, was the most dangerous transformation of all. The next 2 weeks blurred into a routine I never could have imagined for myself. Mornings began in the penthouse, coffee already brewing when I emerged from the guest bedroom. Salvatore appeared at precisely 8:30, driving me to Castellano's office where I spent hours poring over documents, building profiles, tracing connections that Nathan's obsessive attention to detail had inadvertently preserved. I discovered I was good at this work. My years of reference research translated seamlessly into pattern recognition. Financial discrepancies that might have looked random revealed themselves as deliberate obfuscation. Meeting schedules that seemed innocuous showed strategic coordination between Volkov operatives. Nathan's meticulous record-keeping, the same controlling precision he'd turned on me, now became the weapon we'd use to destroy him. Roman. I'd started thinking of him by his first name, though I still called him Mr. Castellano to his face. proved to be an exacting but fair taskmaster. He expected excellence and got it. When I identified a connection between Nathan's warehouse visits and shipments from a Baltic shipping company, Roman's approval came in the form of a rare, genuine smile that transformed his severe features into something almost boyish. "Brilliant," he'd murmured, leaning over my shoulder to examine my notes. "That shipping company is a known Volkov front. You've just connected Nathan directly to their drug trafficking operation." His proximity, the warmth of his breath against my ear, had sent an involuntary shiver through me. I'd been acutely aware of him lately, the way he moved through space with predatory grace, the sharp intelligence in his dark eyes, the surprising gentleness when he handed me coffee or ensured I took breaks. He was nothing like Nathan's suffocating attention. Roman's focus felt protective rather than possessive, though perhaps that distinction was merely wishful thinking. Nathan had called 17 more times. I'd answered twice at Roman's instruction, keeping my responses brief and cold. Each call made Nathan more desperate, more volatile. Roman documented every word, every threat disguised as concern. "Building a case," he said, letting Nathan hang himself with his own obsession. On the 14th day, everything changed. I was in Roman's office, cross-referencing financial records with surveillance photos, when the door opened without the usual knock. A man entered, tall, silver-haired, with cold blue eyes and an expensive suit that screamed European tailoring. He carried himself with the same dangerous confidence as Roman, but where Roman's power felt controlled, this man seemed barely leashed. Roman's expression hardened instantly. "Dmitri, I wasn't expecting you." Clearly. The man's accent was thick Russian, his smile not reaching his eyes. He glanced at me with casual assessment, like a butcher evaluating meat. "And who is this lovely creature?" "No one who concerns you." Roman moved subtly, positioning himself between me and the newcomer. "What do you want?" So protective already. Interesting. Dmitri's gaze sharpened on me. "You look familiar, dear. Have we met?" My blood ran cold. This had to be Dmitri Volkov, the man who employed Nathan, whose organization we were working to destroy. And he was standing 10 feet away, studying me with dawning recognition. "I don't believe so," I said, keeping my voice steady through sheer force of will. Perhaps not, though I could swear." He turned back to Roman. "I came to discuss the Harbor District situation. The territory dispute your father and my father agreed to table 20 years ago. It seems time to revisit those agreements." "Nothing has changed since our last discussion," Roman replied, his tone glacial. "The Harbor District remains neutral ground." "But circumstances evolve, Roman Petrov. Your recent expansion into Brooklyn, for instance. That wasn't part of the original agreements either." Dmitri's smile widened. "I'm simply suggesting we modernize our arrangements, perhaps over dinner next week. You and I, along with our respective advisors. I'll consider it." "Do." Dmitri moved toward the door, pausing beside me. Up close, I could smell his cologne, something overpowering and synthetic. "You really do look familiar. Perhaps you simply have one of those faces, common features." The insult was deliberate. I forced myself to meet his gaze without flinching. "Perhaps," I agreed coolly. After he left, silence filled the office like poison gas. Roman stood motionless, his jaw tight with barely contained fury. "Did he recognize you?" His voice was dangerously quiet. "I don't think so. He seemed uncertain." "But he suspects something." Roman moved to his desk, pressing a button. "Maria, pull all surveillance of Rachel's movements for the past 2 weeks. Check for any Volkov operatives in proximity." "Right away, Mr. Castellano." He turned back to me. "If Dmitri identifies you as Nathan's ex-fiancé, if he connects you to me, you become a target. Not just from Nathan, but from the entire Volkov organization. I understand. Do you? He crossed to me in 3 strides, his hands gripping my shoulders with surprising gentleness, despite the intensity in his eyes. They won't just kill you, Rachel. They'll use you first. To hurt me. To extract information. To send a message that touching what's mine has consequences. I'm not yours, I said automatically, though the protest felt increasingly hollow. Aren't you? His thumb traced my collarbone through my blouse, the touch sending electricity along my nerve endings. You live in my apartment. You work in my office. You're protected by my men. You're helping me destroy my enemies. That makes you mine, whether you've accepted it yet or not. I should have pulled away, should have protested the presumption. Instead, I found myself leaning into his touch, my body betraying what my mind refused to acknowledge. This was supposed to be temporary, I whispered, just until Nathan was neutralized. And when that happens, when Nathan is no longer a threat, his hand slid down to my waist, pulling me closer. Do you really think I'll simply let you walk away? Return to your library and your studio apartment and your ordinary life? You don't own me, Roman. Not yet. His voice dropped lower, intimate. But I will. You're already mine in every way that matters. Your safety, your future, your fear of Nathan transformed into power. I gave you all of that. For a price. Everything has a price, cara mia. The question is whether you're willing to pay it. His forehead touched mine, his breath warm against my lips. I think you are. I think you've been ready to pay it since that first night in the restaurant, when you looked at me with desperate courage and chose danger over helplessness. The phone on his desk rang, shattering the moment. Roman released me with obvious reluctance, moving to answer it. Yes? A pause. When? Where? His expression darkened. Keep him there. I'm coming now. He hung up, already reaching for his jacket. Nathan's been spotted at your old apartment building. He's arguing with your former landlord. My stomach dropped. Mrs. Chen? He's bothering her? Apparently demanding to know where you went, getting aggressive. Roman's jaw tightened. This ends now. Get your coat. What are you going to do? Have a conversation with Nathan Pierce, one that will convince him to stop this obsession before it gets him killed. The drive to my old neighborhood felt surreal. Salvatore navigated the Mercedes through increasingly shabby streets, the contrast between Roman's world and my former life stark in the changing architecture. Luxury high-rises gave way to aging walk-ups. Artisan cafes became bodegas with barred windows. Roman sat beside me in the back seat, his hand covering mine in a grip that was probably meant to be comforting, but felt more possessive. Stay in the car, he instructed as we approached my old building. Salvatore will keep you safe. What are you going to do to him? Nothing permanent. His smile was cold. Not yet. But Nathan needs to understand that you're beyond his reach now. That continuing this pursuit has consequences he won't survive. The car stopped half a block from my building. Through the window, I could see Nathan on the front steps, his face flushed with agitation as he gestured emphatically at Mrs. Chen. My elderly landlord looked frightened, her small frame pressed against the door as Nathan loomed over her. Rage, pure and unexpected, flooded through me. Nathan had already cost me so much. My job at the university, my sense of safety, my ability to maintain relationships. And now he was threatening this kind woman who'd always been patient about late rent, who'd brought me soup when I was sick, who'd asked after me with genuine concern. I'm coming with you, I said, already reaching for the door handle. Rachel. He's terrorizing an innocent woman because of his obsession with me. I should be there. He needs to see that I'm not afraid of him anymore. Roman studied me for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. Pride, perhaps. or satisfaction. Very well. But you stay behind me. If things escalate, Salvatore gets you back to the car immediately. Understood? I nodded. We exited the Mercedes, Roman's security team materializing from a second vehicle I hadn't noticed following us. 4 men in dark suits, moving with coordinated precision. Together we crossed the street toward the building where I'd spent so many fearful months. Nathan saw me first. His face transformed. Relief, joy, desperation all flickering across his features before settling into determined intensity. Rachel. He started down the steps, but stopped abruptly when Roman moved into his path. Who the hell are you? Someone you should have been more careful around. Roman's voice carried that dangerous quiet that made my pulse quicken. Step away from the building, Pierce. You're done here. I'm talking to my fiancé. Nathan tried to move around Roman, his eyes fixed on me with unnerving focus. Rachel, what's going on? Who are these people? Come here. We need to talk. We're not engaged anymore, Nathan. We haven't been for over a year. I stepped closer to Roman, drawing strength from his solid presence. And I don't want to talk to you. I want you to leave me alone. You don't mean that. Someone's gotten to you, turned you against me. His gaze swung to Roman with sudden fury. What did you do to her? What lies did you tell? I told her the truth. Roman's smile was razor sharp. That she's under my protection now. That any attempt to reach her, contact her, or threaten those connected to her will be met with consequences you won't survive. Nathan laughed, the sound edged with hysteria. You think you can threaten me? Do you have any idea who I work for? Dmitry Volkov. And you handle his money laundering operations through various shell companies and offshore accounts. Roman's recitation was casual, almost bored. You're competent, but not irreplaceable, Nathan. And you've become a liability with your obsessive pursuit of Rachel. How long do you think the Volkovs will tolerate an accountant whose personal drama draws unwanted attention? The color drained from Nathan's face. You. How do you know that? I know everything about you. Your banking passwords, the location of your backup files, the names of every Volkov operative you've done work for. Roman leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to something intimate and terrifying. I could destroy you with a single phone call to Dmitry. Reveal every mistake you've made, every rule you've bent, every transaction you've hidden from your employers. They'd eliminate you before sunrise. You're bluffing. Am I? Check your phone. The secure one you think no one knows about. With shaking hands, Nathan pulled out his phone. Not the iPhone he'd called me from, but a second device I'd never seen. His face went sheet white as he stared at the screen. That's a transaction from 3 days ago, Roman continued. One you haven't reported to the Volkovs yet. $50,000 you skimmed for yourself. Small enough to overlook, you thought. But I have evidence of 12 similar transactions over the past 6 months. That's embezzlement, Nathan. The Volkovs execute people for less. Nathan's hands trembled so badly he nearly dropped the phone. What do you want? For you to disappear from Rachel's life. Permanently. No more calls, no more following her, no more showing up at places connected to her. Roman's voice hardened. You forget she exists. You forget you ever knew her. You go back to your pathetic embezzling and your mediocre existence, and you pray I never find a reason to share what I know with your employers. She belongs to me, Nathan whispered, desperation cracking his voice. We're meant to be together. She just needs time to remember that. She belongs to herself. I stepped forward, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. And she's choosing to stay far away from you. Accept it, Nathan. Move on. Find someone else to obsess over. There is no one else. It's always been you, Rachel. From the moment I saw you in that bookstore, I knew we were meant for each other. You're my soulmate, my destiny. I'm your obsession, I interrupted. There's a difference. You don't love me, Nathan. You never did. You love the idea of me, the version you created in your head that was compliant and grateful and willing to let you control every aspect of her existence. But I was never that person, and I never will be. Something dangerous flickered in Nathan's eyes, rage breaking through the desperate devotion. You think you're better than me now, because you've whored yourself to some criminal with money? Roman moved before I could process what was happening. One moment he was beside me, the next he had Nathan pressed against the building wall, forearm across his throat. The violence was so controlled, so precise, it was almost beautiful. Watch your mouth, Roman said quietly, or I'll remove your ability to speak permanently. Nathan gasped for air, his face reddening. Roman held him there for 5 more seconds, long enough to make his point, but not long enough to cause real damage, then released him. Nathan crumpled against the wall, coughing. You have a choice, Pierce. Roman straightened his jacket calmly, as if he hadn't just demonstrated lethal capability. Walk away now, or I make a phone call that ends your life. Which will it be? For a long moment, Nathan simply stared at us. At me, really. I watched the realization settle over him, that he'd truly lost me, that whatever connection we'd once had was irreparably severed. The desperation in his eyes transformed into something colder, more calculating. This isn't over, he said, his voice hoarse. Yes, Roman replied. It is. Nathan pushed off the wall, stumbling down the street without looking back. We watched until he disappeared around the corner. He's going to be a problem, I said quietly. Yes. Roman turned to me. Which is why we accelerate our timeline. I'll have everything we've gathered on him delivered to Dmitri by the end of the week. Let the Volkovs handle their own liability. The casual way he condemned Nathan to death should have disturbed me more than it did. But all I could think about was the relief flooding through me, the possibility of finally being free. Mrs. Chen emerged tentatively from the building. Miss Morrison, are you all right? I'm fine, Mrs. Chen. I'm so sorry he bothered you. That man, he's troubled. She glanced at Roman with newfound respect. But you have good protection now. Strong man who cares for you. I didn't correct her assumption about Roman's feelings. Didn't point out that our arrangement was transactional rather than romantic. Because standing there in front of my old building, with Roman's hand resting protectively on my lower back and Nathan finally retreating, it felt almost like she was right. On the drive back, Roman was unusually quiet. His hand found mine again, fingers interlacing with a possessiveness that I was beginning to find comforting rather than concerning. You handled that well, he said finally, standing up to him, making your rejection clear. I had an intimidating bodyguard. You would have been strong without me there. You're not the same woman who walked into that restaurant 2 weeks ago. His thumb traced circles on my palm. You're becoming dangerous, Rachel. I like it. The approval in his voice sent warmth through my chest. When had I started craving his validation? When had Roman Castellano's opinion begun to matter more than maintaining my independence? What happens now? I asked. Now we finish what we started. The evidence against Nathan goes to Dmitri. The Volkovs eliminate their liability, and you're finally free of your ex-fiancé. He paused. And then we discuss what comes next for us. Us? You didn't think I'd let you leave after this was over, did you? His gaze was intense, searching. You're mine now, Rachel, whether you fully recognize it yet or not. You've seen too much of my world, know too much about my operations. But more than that, he cupped my face gently. I don't want to let you go. These past 2 weeks, watching you work, seeing your strength emerge, having you in my space, I've become accustomed to your presence. Addicted to it, perhaps. That's not love, Roman. That's possession. Is there a difference? He smiled slightly. Perhaps not for men like me. But I can promise you this. No one will ever threaten you again. No one will make you afraid. You'll want for nothing. Be denied nothing. You'll live in safety and comfort for as long as you're mine. And my freedom? You'll have as much as you want, within reason. I'm not Nathan, Kara. I don't want to cage you. I want to protect you while you soar. His voice softened. But I won't pretend I'll ever let you go. Not after I've claimed you. The declaration should have terrified me. Instead, it felt like inevitability settling into place. I'd entered Roman's world seeking protection, but somewhere along the way, I'd begun to crave his presence, his strength, his dangerous attention focused entirely on me. Perhaps that made me weak, or perhaps it made me pragmatic. Trading one form of captivity for another, but this time with luxury and safety, and a man who saw my strength rather than trying to diminish it. What about my job? I asked. The library? You can return if you wish, or I can offer you a position in my organization. Your analytical skills are wasted in a library. Here, you could make a real difference. He studied my face. But that's your choice, Rachel. I won't dictate your career the way Nathan tried to control every aspect of your life. We pulled up to the Tribeca building. Salvatore opened my door, offering his hand to help me exit. Roman appeared at my other side, his hand settling on my waist as we entered the lobby. The concierge nodded respectfully. Good evening, Mr. Castellano, Miss Morrison. Miss Morrison. As if my presence here was normal, expected, as if I belonged in this world of luxury and danger. In the elevator, Roman pulled me against him, his arms encircling my waist from behind. I could feel the solid strength of his chest against my back, smell his cologne, sense the controlled power in his embrace. Stay with me tonight, he murmured against my ear. Not in the guest room. With me. My breath caught. Roman, I won't touch you unless you ask. I simply want you close. Want to fall asleep knowing you're safe beside me. His lips brushed my temple. Say yes, Rachel. I should have refused. Should have maintained boundaries. Preserved the professional distance that kept this arrangement from becoming something more complicated. But I was tired of sleeping alone. Tired of waking in the night with residual fear of Nathan finding me. Tired of denying the attraction that had been building between us since that first night in the restaurant. Yes, I whispered. Roman's arms tightened around me with satisfaction. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse, and he led me through the living room to the master bedroom I'd never entered. It was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic city view, a massive bed with dark linens, furniture that managed to be both masculine and elegant. Personal touches spoke of Roman's tastes. A collection of vintage watches displayed under glass, several leather-bound books stacked on the nightstand, a photograph of an older couple who had to be his parents. The bathroom is through there, he gestured. Take whatever time you need. I'll be here. I retreated to the bathroom, needing a moment to process what I'd agreed to. The space was predictably luxurious, marble and glass, and fixtures that probably cost more than my annual salary. I washed my face, brushed my teeth with a spare toothbrush I found in a drawer, changed into the oversized t-shirt I'd brought from the guest room. When I emerged, Roman was already in bed, bare-chested, the sheets pooled at his waist. Even relaxed, his body was impressive. Broad shoulders, defined abs, the kind of physique that came from disciplined training rather than vanity gym sessions. Scars marked his skin, testament to a violent life I was only beginning to understand. He held back the covers in silent invitation. I crossed to the bed, slipping beneath the sheets. The mattress was perfect, the linen soft, but it was Roman's warmth as he pulled me against him that made me feel truly safe for the first time in years. "Sleep," he murmured, his arms encircling me. "I have you." And despite everything, the danger, the moral compromises, the uncertain future, I did sleep, deeply and dreamlessly, protected by a dangerous man's embrace. When I woke hours later, moonlight streaming through uncurtained windows, Roman was still holding me. His breathing was deep and even, his face peaceful in a way I'd never seen it during waking hours. Without the constant vigilance that defined his public persona, he looked younger, almost vulnerable. My phone, charging on the nightstand, lit up with a notification. A text from an unknown number. "You think Castellano can protect you? You think you're safe now? You have no idea what's coming, Rachel. What I'm capable of. This isn't over. It's only beginning." N. Ice flooded my veins. I reached for the phone with shaking hands, but Roman's arm tightened around me, pulling me back against his chest. "Ignore it," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "Whatever Nathan sent, ignore it." "How did you know?" "I know you, Kara. Know your breathing patterns, your tension, your fear." He took the phone gently from my hand, glancing at the screen. His expression hardened even in the darkness. Empty threats from a desperate man. By this time tomorrow, Dimitri will have everything we've gathered. Nathan Pierce's days are numbered. What if he does something before then? What if he hurts someone? He won't get the chance. Roman set the phone aside, rolling to face me fully. "I've had him under surveillance since our confrontation today. Every move he makes is monitored. If he so much as looks at you again, my men will intervene." "You're watching him?" "I watch everything that threatens what's mine." His hand came up to cup my face. "Go back to sleep, Rachel. Let me worry about Nathan Pierce. That's what you have me for." The possessiveness should have bothered me. Instead, it felt like the safest thing in the world. I nestled back against him, letting his warmth chase away the chill Nathan's message had brought. As sleep claimed me again, my last conscious thought was how drastically my life had changed in 2 short weeks. And how, despite the danger and moral ambiguity, I'd never felt more protected, more seen, more dangerously, impossibly alive. Morning arrived with soft light filtering through the windows, and the realization that I'd spent the entire night in Roman Castellano's arms. His body was warm against mine, one arm draped possessively over my waist, even in sleep. I lay still, afraid to move, and break whatever spell had made this seem acceptable, normal even. His phone buzzed on the nightstand, shattering the moment. Roman stirred, his grip tightening briefly before he reached for the device with his free hand. I felt his body tense as he read whatever message had arrived. "What is it?" I asked quietly. "Nathan made a withdrawal last night. 200,000 from one of the Volkov accounts he manages." Roman's voice was hard, alert despite having just woken. "He's running." I sat up, the sheets pooling around my waist. "Running where?" "That's what we're going to find out." He was already moving, the focused intensity I'd come to recognize taking over. "Get dressed. We need to be at the office in 30 minutes. The penthouse transformed into controlled chaos. Roman made calls while I hurriedly dressed in clothes from the guest room, my hands shaking slightly as I buttoned my blouse. Nathan running meant desperation, and desperate Nathan was unpredictable in ways that terrified me. Salvatore had the car waiting when we emerged from the building. The drive to the office felt different this morning, charged with urgency that hadn't existed before. Roman's hand found mine in the back seat, his thumb tracing absent patterns on my palm that might have been meant to comfort, but felt more like claiming. "If Nathan's stolen from the Volkovs, they'll hunt him," I said, voicing the thought that had been circling since Roman's revelation. They'll kill him. Yes. No hesitation, no apology. And that's what you want. That's what's necessary. He turned to face me fully. I know you loved him once, Rachel. That some part of you might still care what happens to him. But Nathan Pierce made his choices. He could have accepted your rejection and moved on. Instead, he stalked you, threatened you, stole from his employers in a desperate attempt to finance what I suspect was a plan to take you somewhere against your will. These are his consequences, not mine. The words were harsh, but true. Nathan had created this situation through his own obsessive actions. Still, knowing he was likely facing execution made my stomach churn with complicated emotions. Relief, guilt, residual affection for the man I'd once thought I'd marry, all tangled together until I couldn't separate them. At the office, Roman's team was already assembled. I recognized some faces from previous visits. Marco, his head of security, Teresa, his financial analyst, and several other men whose exact roles remained unclear, but whose dangerous competence was evident. He booked a flight to the Cayman Islands, Marco reported, pulling up information on the large screen dominating one wall. Leaves in 4 hours from Newark. But he also made a reservation at a hotel near your old apartment, Miss Morrison. Under an assumed name, but we traced the credit card. My blood ran cold. Why would he go there? Because he's unraveling, Roman said, studying the screen with narrowed eyes. Obsession overriding self-preservation. He's stolen enough money to disappear, booked an escape route, but he can't leave without one final attempt to reach you. He knows where the penthouse is, I realized with growing horror. He saw Salvatore pick me up that first day. He could have followed us. Impossible. We check for tails constantly. But Roman's expression had tightened with concern. Marco, put additional security on the building. No one gets within 100 feet without identification. Already done, boss. What about Mrs. Chen? I asked suddenly, remembering Nathan's confrontation with my former landlord. If he's desperate enough, he might try to use her to get information about me. Roman's gaze snapped to mine, something shifting in his expression, approval mixed with concern. You're right. Teresa, send someone to collect Mrs. Chen. Bring her somewhere safe until this is resolved. She'll be frightened, I protested. She's an elderly woman who doesn't understand this world. Then you'll call her. Explain that you're concerned for her safety and we're offering protection. Roman moved closer, his hand settling on my lower back in that possessive gesture I'd grown accustomed to. She'll accept if the request comes from you. I made the call, carefully explaining that Nathan had been acting unstable, and I was worried he might bother her again. Mrs. Chen, bless her pragmatic heart, agreed immediately to stay with Miss Morrison's friend for a few days. Within an hour, Teresa reported that she'd been collected and installed in a comfortable hotel suite with guards outside her door. Now what? I asked, as the team dispersed to their various tasks. Now we wait. Roman guided me to his private office, closing the door behind us. Nathan will either go to the airport and flee, or he'll attempt one final contact with you. Either way, we'll be ready. But waiting proved harder than I'd anticipated. The morning stretched into afternoon, each hour ratcheting my anxiety higher. Roman worked steadily through meetings and calls, handling his legitimate business with the same focused intensity he applied to dealing with Nathan. I tried to distract myself with the research I'd been conducting, but every notification on my phone made me jump. At 2 o'clock, Marco appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. Boss, we have a problem. Roman looked up immediately. What kind of problem? Nathan never went to his hotel, and he's not heading to the airport. Marco's gaze flickered to me apologetically. He's at the Manhattan Branch Library where Miss Morrison works. He's asking for her. The bottom dropped out of my stomach. My coworkers are currently dealing with an increasingly agitated man demanding to know your whereabouts. Marco pulled out his phone, showing us grainy security footage. Nathan stood at the circulation desk, gesturing wildly while a librarian I recognized, Sarah, kind Sarah, who'd helped me adjust when I'd started working there, backed away with obvious fear. "He has a gun," I whispered, spotting the bulge under Nathan's jacket that I'd learned to recognize during our time together. He always carried one, but swore he'd never use it. Men who swear they'd never use weapons are often the most dangerous when pushed to their limit. Roman was already moving, grabbing his jacket while issuing rapid instructions into his phone. "Get everyone out of that library. Quietly if possible, but get them out. And call the police. Anonymous tip about an armed man." "I'm coming with you," I said, already standing. "Absolutely not. He's there because of me. Those people are in danger because Nathan is obsessed with me." My voice was steady despite the terror coursing through me. "If I'm there, maybe I can talk him down before someone gets hurt. Or he'll take you hostage and use you as leverage." Roman's expression was hard, immovable. "You stay here where you're safe." "Those are innocent people, Roman. Sarah has a 6-year-old daughter. Michael just started graduate school. They don't deserve to be caught in Nathan's breakdown." I moved closer to him, my hand on his arm. "Please, let me help end this." For a long moment, he simply looked at me, something unreadable passing across his features. Then his jaw tightened with decision. "If I allow this, you follow my instructions exactly. No heroics, no improvisation. You do what I say when I say it, or I will have Salvatore physically remove you from the situation. Understood?" I nodded, relief and fear warring in my chest. The drive to the library felt endless despite Salvatore's expert navigation through afternoon traffic. Roman spent the entire time on his phone, coordinating with Marco and apparently with contacts in the police department who owed him favors. By the time we arrived, 2 patrol cars were already parked outside, officers moving library patrons away from the building with calm efficiency. "Most of the staff got out through the back," Marco reported, materializing beside us as we exited the car. "But Nathan is holding 3 librarians in the main reading room. He's demanding to speak with Miss Morrison." "What about the police?" I asked. "Waiting for hostage negotiators. Could be another 20 minutes. Marco's expression was grim. 20 minutes with an armed, unstable man and 3 hostages. Roman's hand tightened on my waist. "Rachel stays with me at all times. She doesn't go in unless I'm beside her." We approached the police perimeter. The officer in charge, a weathered man in his 50s with sergeant stripes, recognized Roman immediately. Whatever history existed between them played out in a brief exchange of looks before the sergeant stepped aside. "Your guy inside is deteriorating fast," he said quietly. Started calm. Now he's shouting, waving the gun around. "My people are ready to go in hard if necessary, but—" "Give me 5 minutes," Roman interrupted. "Rachel will talk him down." The sergeant's gaze flickered to me with open skepticism. "Ma'am, negotiation with armed individuals requires training." "She knows him better than anyone." Roman's voice carried absolute authority. 5 minutes. If she can't calm him, your team goes in. After a tense pause, the sergeant nodded. 5 minutes. But first sign of escalation. We're pulling you out. Roman turned to me, his hands framing my face with surprising gentleness given the circumstances. "Listen carefully. We go in together. You stay slightly behind me at all times. You speak calmly, use his name, remind him of good memories you shared. Make him remember you're a person he cared about, not an objective to be captured. And if he tries to grab me, I'll put a bullet in him before he gets within 3 feet. The casual way he said it should have shocked me. Instead, it felt like the safest promise in the world. Ready? I nodded, my mouth too dry for words. We entered the library through the main doors. The familiar space looked surreal in its emptiness. No patrons browsing shelves, no computers humming, no rustle of pages. Just silence broken by Nathan's voice echoing from the reading room. I know she works here. Stop lying to me. Rachel, Rachel, I know you can hear me. His voice carried the edge of hysteria I'd learned to dread during our relationship. The sound that meant his control was fracturing, reason giving way to emotion. Nathan, I called out, stepping into view with Roman's solid presence at my back. I'm here. He appeared in the reading room doorway, and my heart clenched at his appearance. His usually meticulous hair was disheveled. His clothes wrinkled as if he'd slept in them. His eyes were wild, red-rimmed from lack of sleep or crying, or both. The gun hung loosely in his right hand, pointed at the floor but ready. Behind him, I could see 3 of my coworkers huddled near the reference desk. Sarah, Michael, and Barbara, all people I'd laughed with during lunch breaks, complained about difficult patrons with, shared pieces of my life with, all now terrified because of my connection to the man holding them hostage. Rachel. Nathan's voice cracked on my name. You came. Of course I came. Let them go, Nathan. They have nothing to do with this. They work with you. They see you every day. They're part of the life you built without me. His voice hardened. The life you stole from us. I didn't steal anything. We ended. People break up, Nathan. It's painful, but it's normal. We didn't break up. The gun rose slightly. You abandoned me, left me without explanation, without giving me a chance to fix things. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I'm sorry you were hurt. Sorry? He laughed, the sound edged with something broken. You're sorry? You destroyed me, Rachel. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't function. Everything reminded me of you. And then I find out you're living with him. His gaze fixed on Roman with pure hatred. Whoring yourself to a criminal. That's what you left me for? Roman remained perfectly still beside me, but I could sense the controlled violence in his posture, the readiness to act if Nathan's gun moved toward me. Let them go, I repeated, keeping my voice calm despite my racing heart. Keep me if you need a hostage, but let my coworkers leave. Please. Something flickered in Nathan's expression, the man I'd once loved briefly visible beneath the obsessive stranger. You'd trade yourself for them? Yes. Rachel, no. Sarah whimpered from behind Nathan. It's okay, I said, my eyes never leaving Nathan's. Nathan doesn't want to hurt anyone. He's just confused and scared. Isn't that right, Nathan? I'm not confused. The gun rose further, now pointed vaguely in our direction. I know exactly what's happening. You've been poisoned against me, turned into someone I don't recognize. But I can fix this. I can remind you who you really are, who we really are together. By stealing from the Volkovs? Roman's voice was deceptively calm. By running? You think there's anywhere you can take her that Dmitry Volkov won't find you? Nathan's face paled. How did you? I know everything, Pierce. The embezzlement, the flight to the Caymans, the fantasy you've constructed where you can somehow restart your relationship with Rachel by force. Roman's hand settled on my waist, the gesture deliberately possessive. It's over. She's mine now. Accept it or die. Those are your only options. Don't touch her. Nathan's gun snapped up, now aimed directly at Roman's chest. Get your hands off her. Everything happened at once. Roman pushed me behind him with one hand while reaching for his own weapon with the other. Police poured through the library entrance, shouting commands. Nathan's attention splintered between threats, his gun wavering. And Sarah, brave, foolish Sarah, chose that moment to run. Nathan spun toward the movement, his finger tightening on the trigger reflexively. The shot was deafeningly loud in the enclosed space. Sarah crumpled with a cry of pain, blood blooming across her shoulder. "No!" My scream was lost in the chaos as police descended, as Michael and Barbara scrambled for cover, as Roman's body became a shield between Nathan and me. Nathan stared at Sarah's fallen form with horror-struck incomprehension, as if he couldn't process what he'd done. The gun fell from nerveless fingers, clattering against the floor. "I didn't mean—" His voice was lost as police tackled him, forcing him to the ground with professional violence. "Rachel, I didn't mean to. I just wanted you back. That's all I ever wanted." Paramedics rushed past us to Sarah. Roman pulled me away from the scene, his arms encircling me as I shook with reaction. "She's alive," he murmured against my hair. "Shoulder wound. She'll survive. He shot her. Nathan shot someone." My voice sounded distant, disconnected. Because of me. Because of his own choices. Roman's grip tightened. "This isn't your fault, Rachel. None of this is your fault." But it felt like my fault. Nathan's obsession with me had driven him to this. My inability to make him understand it was over had led to innocent people being terrorized. Sarah bleeding on the library floor was the price of my poor judgment in ever dating Nathan Pierce. The sergeant approached, his expression grim, but not unsympathetic. "We'll need statements from both of you. The woman will be fine. Paramedics say the bullet went clean through, missed anything vital. As for Pierce..." He glanced toward where Nathan was being handcuffed, tears streaming down his face as he kept repeating my name. "He's looking at kidnapping, assault with a deadly weapon, illegal possession of a firearm. He won't see the outside of a prison for a very long time." "Unless the Volkovs reach him first," Roman said quietly. The sergeant's expression closed off. "That's not my concern. My concern is this crime scene and protecting civilians." He looked at me. "You're lucky, Miss Morrison. This could have ended much worse." "Lucky." The word felt obscene given Sarah's blood staining the library carpet. The next several hours passed in a blur of police statements and hospital waiting rooms. Roman never left my side, his presence a constant anchor as I repeated my story for various officers, explained Nathan's history of stalking, confirmed the timeline of events. His hand stayed on my back, my shoulder, my waist. Constant contact that probably looked possessive to observers, but felt like the only thing keeping me grounded. Sarah's surgery went smoothly. The bullet had indeed passed through cleanly, missing bone and major blood vessels through what her doctor called remarkable luck. When I was finally allowed to see her, shame nearly overwhelmed me. "I'm so sorry," I whispered, taking her good hand gently. "This is my fault. If I hadn't worked here, if Nathan hadn't been looking for me..." "Stop." Sarah's voice was weak but firm. "That man is sick, Rachel. You're not responsible for his sickness." She squeezed my fingers. "I'm glad you got away from him. Glad you're safe now." Her daughter, collected by her ex-husband, peeked around the door with wide, frightened eyes. 6 years old and already learning that the world contained dangerous men who hurt people. Roman spoke with her father in low tones while I said goodbye to Sarah, promising to cover any medical expenses not covered by insurance, to ensure she had everything she needed during recovery. Promises that felt inadequate given what she'd endured because of my connection to Nathan. When we finally left the hospital, night had fallen. The city lights that usually seemed beautiful just looked cold and distant. I was exhausted, emotionally wrung out, my hands still shaking with residual adrenaline. "Take us home," Roman told Salvatore as we slid into the back seat. Home. He meant the penthouse. I didn't correct him. In the elevator, my legs suddenly gave out. Roman caught me smoothly, lifting me into his arms without apparent effort. I should have protested, insisted I could walk, but I didn't have the strength. Instead, I buried my face against his neck, breathing in his familiar scent, cedar and spice and safety. He carried me to his bedroom, setting me gently on the bed before kneeling to remove my shoes. His movements were tender, caring in ways that made my throat tighten with emotion I was too exhausted to examine. "Shower," he instructed softly. "Wash away the day. I'll be here when you're done." The hot water helped, washing away sweat and fear, if not the memory of Sarah's scream, or Nathan's broken expression as police dragged him away. I stayed under the spray until my skin turned pink, until the water began to cool. When I emerged, wrapped in one of Roman's silk robes that was far too large, he was waiting exactly where he'd promised. He'd changed into lounge pants and a t-shirt, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. Without the armor of his expensive suits, he seemed almost approachable. Almost. "Come here," he said, patting the bed beside him. I crossed to him, allowing him to pull me down into his embrace. We lay tangled together, his warmth seeping into my cold skin, his heartbeat steady beneath my ear. "Nathan will face charges," he said quietly. "Attempted kidnapping, assault, illegal weapons possession. He's looking at 15 to 20 years minimum. The Volkovs, we'll handle him in prison. Dmitri already knows about the embezzlement. Nathan Pierce is a dead man walking, whether he realizes it yet or not." The finality should have upset me more than it did. But I was too tired to feel anything beyond relief that it was over. Nathan couldn't hurt anyone else, couldn't terrorize me anymore. Whatever happened to him now was justice, however rough. "Sarah will be okay," Roman continued, his fingers combing gently through my damp hair. "I've already arranged for her medical bills to be covered and a very generous settlement that will ensure her daughter's college education. She'll want for nothing. Thank you." The words felt inadequate. "You have nothing to thank me for. This is what I do. Protect what's mine and ensure those hurt because of me are compensated." His arms tightened around me. "You're mine to protect, Rachel. Today proved that. When Nathan aimed that gun at you, when he threatened what belongs to me, I would have killed him without hesitation." "I know. Does that frighten you?" I thought about it, about the man holding me who'd proven himself capable of controlled violence, who'd declared ownership of me with casual certainty, who'd dismantled my stalker's life with ruthless efficiency. "No," I admitted. "It should, but it doesn't. You're dangerous, Roman. Probably the most dangerous man I've ever met. But you've never turned that danger on me. Only for me. And I never will." He tilted my face up, his dark eyes intense. "You're safe with me, Kara. Always. Whatever happens, whoever threatens you, I will eliminate them. Because you're mine. And I protect what's mine with everything I have." The possessiveness should have bothered me, should have triggered memories of Nathan's controlling obsession. But Roman's claiming felt different. Protective rather than restrictive, empowering rather than diminishing. "What happens now?" I whispered. "Nathan's going to prison. The Volkovs will eliminate him eventually, and I'm free. Our arrangement is essentially over." "Is it?" His thumb traced my lower lip. "You think I'll simply let you walk back to your old life? Return to your studio apartment and your library job and pretend these past weeks never happened?" That was the deal. The deal has changed. His voice was soft, but absolute. "You've seen my world, Rachel. You've been part of my operations, slept in my bed, accepted my protection. You're mine now in every way that matters. The only question is whether you'll accept that willingly, or whether I need to convince you." My heart raced at the implication. "Convince me how?" "However necessary." His mouth curved in a slight smile. "Though I suspect you're already convinced. You've been falling for me just as surely as I've been claiming you. The only difference is you're still fighting it. I barely know you. You know the parts of me that matter. You know I keep my promises. That I'm ruthless with enemies, but generous with those under my protection. That I value intelligence and courage and loyalty above all else. His hand slid down to rest over my heart. And you know that when I commit to something, I commit completely. I'm committing to you, Rachel Morrison. All of you. Forever. The declaration was both terrifying and exhilarating. No man had ever looked at me the way Roman did. Like I was precious and powerful simultaneously. Something to be cherished and protected. I need time, I whispered. To process everything that happened today. To figure out what I actually want versus what feels safe. You have time. All the time you need. He pressed a kiss to my forehead. But you'll take that time here, under my roof, in my bed. I'm not letting you out of my sight until I'm certain Nathan's associates won't try to reach you. His associates? The Volkovs are meticulous about tying up loose ends. You were Nathan's obsession. They might see you as a potential liability or source of information. Roman's expression hardened. But they'll never reach you. I promise you that. We lay in silence, the city lights filtering through the windows, casting shadows across the ceiling. Roman's fingers traced idle patterns on my shoulder, soothing and possessive simultaneously. Tell me about your parents, I said suddenly, wanting to know more about this man who'd become the center of my existence. The photograph on your nightstand, are they gone? My father was killed when I was 19. Rival organization, during a period of instability in the city's underworld. His voice was carefully neutral. My mother followed 6 months later. The doctors said it was a stroke, but I know better. She died of a broken heart. I'm sorry. Don't be. My father taught me everything I needed to survive in this world before he died. And my mother's death taught me the final lesson. That love can be a weakness if you allow it to be. That caring too deeply for someone gives your enemies a weapon to use against you. Is that why you've never married? Never had children? Partially. But mostly because I never met anyone worth the risk. He shifted to look down at me, his expression intense. Until you. My breath caught. Roman. I know it's fast. I know you're still processing Nathan's betrayal and your own complicated feelings about what we're building together. But I need you to understand. I'm not Nathan. My interest in you isn't obsession disguised as love. It's something deeper. Something permanent. How can you be sure? You barely know me either. I know you stood up to a stalker rather than live in fear. That you're brilliant enough to see patterns in financial data that my trained analysts missed. That you care deeply about innocent people being hurt because of you. That you're brave enough to walk into danger to protect others. His hand cupped my face. I know everything I need to know, Kara. The rest we'll learn together. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. He checked it, his expression tightening. What is it? Nathan's been formally charged. Arraignment tomorrow morning. He set the phone aside. And Dmitry Volkov has requested a meeting. Wants to discuss Nathan's embezzlement and ensure there are no lingering complications from his associates' actions. Complications meaning me. Potentially. But I'll handle Dmitry. You don't need to worry about the Volkovs. Because you're protecting what's yours. Exactly. He pulled me closer, his warmth surrounding me. Sleep now. Tomorrow we deal with whatever comes next. Together. I closed my eyes, exhaustion finally overwhelming anxiety. In Roman's arms, with his steady heartbeat beneath my ear and his whispered promise of protection surrounding me, I felt safer than I had in years. Perhaps he was right. Perhaps I was already his, whether I'd fully accepted it or not. Perhaps the deal we'd made that first night had always been leading to this. Me in his bed, in his life, under his protection in ways that went far beyond simple security arrangements. As sleep pulled me under, my last conscious thought was surprisingly peaceful. Nathan was going to prison. The Volkovs would eliminate him eventually, and I would be here, in Roman Castellano's world, learning to be dangerous myself, learning to protect what was mine as fiercely as he protected what was his. And somewhere in the process of surviving my stalker, I'd fallen for the man who'd saved me. The most dangerous man I'd ever known. And somehow, exactly the man I needed. The morning after Nathan's arrest brought an unexpected peace. I woke to find Roman already awake, propped against the headboard with his laptop balanced on his knees, working despite the early hour. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching the silver at his temples and making him look almost scholarly rather than dangerous. "You should still be sleeping," he said without looking away from the screen, somehow aware I'd woken despite my stillness. "So should you." "I don't require much sleep." He set the laptop aside, turning to face me fully. His expression was softer than usual, the hard edges I'd grown accustomed to somehow smoothed by morning light. "How do you feel?" "Strange." I sat up, pulling the sheets around me. Nathan's in custody. The threat that's defined my life for 14 months is suddenly gone. I don't know what to do with that. You adjust, you rebuild. You remember what it feels like to live without fear. His hand found mine beneath the sheets, fingers interlacing. And you do it here, where I can ensure you're truly safe while you heal. The assumption that I'd stay no longer felt presumptuous. Somewhere between yesterday's violence and this morning's quiet, I'd accepted what Roman had been saying all along. I was his now. The question was what that meant beyond protection and possession. "The arraignment is at 10, Roman continued. "You don't have to attend, but the prosecutor wants you available in case Nathan attempts to post bail." "He won't get bail, will he? Not after taking hostages." "Unlikely, but the Volkovs have deep pockets and skilled lawyers. There's a small chance they might intervene on his behalf." At my startled look, Roman's mouth twisted. Not out of loyalty, out of strategy. Better to have him where they can control him while they recover their money and determine how much damage his embezzlement caused. They'd bail him out just to kill him themselves? Welcome to my world, Kara. Nothing is straightforward. Everyone has angles. He stood, the morning light revealing the lean muscle beneath his t-shirt, the casual power in his movements. "But I've taken precautions. If Nathan does make bail, he'll be under surveillance from the moment he leaves the courthouse. He won't get within a mile of you." The bathroom ritual felt surreal in its domesticity. Roman showered while I dressed, his voice carrying through the door as he continued discussing the day's plans. When he emerged, water droplets still clinging to his chest, and a towel slung low on his hips, I found myself staring with an appreciation I'd been trying to suppress for weeks. He noticed, of course. His smile was slow and knowing. "See something you like? You're very sure of yourself. I'm sure of what I see in your eyes when you look at me." He moved closer, crowding me against the dresser with deliberate intent. "The same hunger I feel when I look at you. The same recognition that this thing between us goes deeper than our arrangement." His mouth hovered inches from mine, his breath warm against my lips. I could close the distance so easily, could give in to the attraction that had been building since that first night in the restaurant. But something held me back. Not fear exactly, but awareness that crossing this line would cement the claim he'd been making all along. "Roman," I whispered, not sure if I was protesting or pleading. "Soon," he promised, pulling back with visible effort. "When you're ready to admit what you want. When you're ready to stop fighting inevitability." He pressed a kiss to my forehead, tender, despite the desire darkening his eyes. "Get dressed, Kara. We have a long day ahead." Salvatore drove us to the courthouse, the familiar route through Manhattan traffic, taking on new significance. The last time I'd traveled these streets with Roman, Nathan had been a free man terrorizing my former landlord. Now he was in custody, facing charges that would destroy his life. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt oddly hollow. The courthouse steps were crowded with lawyers and defendants and family members, all playing out their own dramas. Roman's hand settled on my lower back as we climbed, his security team forming a discreet perimeter. Inside, the prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Amanda Chen, met us in a conference room. "Miss Morrison." She shook my hand firmly. "Thank you for coming. I want to walk you through what to expect if you're called to testify." For the next hour, she explained the charges against Nathan, the evidence the state had gathered, the likelihood of conviction given the witnesses and physical evidence. Roman sat beside me throughout, his presence steady and reassuring as Amanda described in clinical detail how Nathan's actions had terrorized not just me, but my co-workers and former landlord. "The defense will try to paint Pierce as mentally ill rather than criminal," Amanda warned. "They'll argue his obsession with you was a psychological break, that he needs treatment, not incarceration. Your testimony about his controlling behavior during your relationship will be crucial to establishing pattern and intent." "She won't testify," Roman said flatly. Amanda's eyebrows rose. "Mr. Castellano, with all due respect." "Rachel has given statements to police. She's provided documentation of restraining orders and threatening messages. That's sufficient." His voice carried absolute authority. "She won't be put on display for Nathan's lawyers to dissect and his family to judge. Find another way to make your case." "The victim's testimony is often the most compelling." I said no. Roman leaned forward slightly, his posture relaxed, but his eyes hard. "Push this, and I'll have Pierce defended by the best lawyers money can buy. Your open and shut case becomes a prolonged trial that destroys your conviction rate, or you accept the evidence you have, and we all get the outcome we want. Your choice, Prosecutor Chen." The threat hung in the air between them. Amanda's expression cycled through anger, calculation, and finally pragmatic acceptance. "Fine, we'll proceed without victim testimony. But if the case weakens without it..." "It won't." Roman stood, effectively ending the meeting. "You have everything you need to convict Nathan Pierce of multiple felonies. Use it." Outside the conference room, I turned to him with exasperation and gratitude warring in my chest. "You can't just threaten prosecutors, Roman." "I can, and I did. You've been through enough without being cross-examined by lawyers trying to blame you for Nathan's actions." His hand cupped my face gently. "I told you I'd protect you. That includes protecting you from further trauma, even when the system demands it as the price of justice. What if Nathan goes free because I don't testify?" "He won't. The evidence against him is overwhelming. Witnesses, physical evidence, the recording from the library's security cameras. Your testimony would be powerful, but not necessary." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "And if by some miracle he does go free, I'll handle him personally. Permanently." The casual way he discussed murder should have disturbed me. Instead, it felt like the most profound protection anyone had ever offered. The arraignment itself was brief and anticlimactic. Nathan appeared via video feed from the detention center, looking haggard and broken in his orange jumpsuit. His lawyer, a public defender who looked barely out of law school, argued for bail based on Nathan's lack of prior criminal history and ties to the community. The prosecutor countered with the violence of his crimes, the witnesses he'd terrorized, the loaded weapon he discharged in a public place. The judge denied bail without hesitation, setting a trial date for 3 months out. Through it all, Nathan's eyes searched the courtroom, finally landing on me in the back row beside Roman. His expression crumpled, tears streaming down his face as he mouthed words I was grateful I couldn't hear. Roman's arm came around my shoulders, pulling me closer in a gesture that was both comfort and claim. "It's over," he murmured against my hair. "He can't touch you anymore." We left the courthouse to find a commotion at the bottom of the steps. News cameras, reporters shouting questions, microphones thrust toward anyone who looked official. Nathan's case, it seemed, had captured media attention. The obsessed ex-fiancé, the library hostage situation, the injured innocent bystander. "Miss Morrison," a reporter spotted me, triggering a surge of journalists in our direction. "Miss Morrison, how do you feel about Nathan Pierce's arrest? Do you believe he's mentally ill or criminal? Will you testify at his trial?" Roman's security team formed a wall instantly, blocking the cameras and reporters with professional efficiency. Salvatore appeared with the car, and Roman hustled me inside before the questions could continue. "Vultures," he muttered, sliding in beside me. "Marco, I want surveillance on all of them. Find out who's feeding them information about Rachel's identity and address it." "Already on it, boss." The privacy partition rose, sealing us in the back seat. I realized I was shaking. The adrenaline of the courthouse combined with the unexpected media attention, overwhelming my careful composure. "Breathe," Roman instructed, pulling me against him. "Just breathe. They can't hurt you. They're looking for a story, nothing more. They know my name. They'll find where I live, where I work. You live with me now, in a building with security that makes Fort Knox look casual. And your library job." He paused. "I suspect you'll need to resign. The attention will make it impossible to work there peacefully." The thought of losing my job, my independence, my last connection to my old life, sent panic clawing through my chest. I can't just quit. I have bills, responsibilities, which I'll handle. "Rachel, you're under my protection now. That includes financial support. You'll want for nothing. I'm not a kept woman, Roman. No, you're my woman. There's a difference." His voice was gentle but firm. "And my woman doesn't struggle to pay rent or worry about medical bills or work in a place where reporters will harass her for quotes about her traumatic experience. My woman lives comfortably while she heals and decides what she wants to do with her future. You're making decisions for me. I'm making practical suggestions based on circumstances you didn't create." He tilted my face up, forcing me to meet his eyes. "But if you want autonomy, if you want to make your own choices, then choose. Stay with me or leave. Accept my protection and support or refuse it. But understand that leaving means losing my security, my resources, my ability to shield you from what's coming." "What's coming?" His expression darkened. "The Volkovs will want to meet you. They'll want to assess whether you're a liability, whether you know anything useful about Nathan's activities, whether you might cooperate with federal investigators looking into their organization. And the media will hound you for interviews, exploit your trauma for ratings, turn your pain into entertainment." The picture he painted was terrifying in its plausibility. "So, my choice is to stay with you or face all of that alone. Your choice is to accept that your life has fundamentally changed and adapt accordingly. I'm offering you the tools to adapt safely and comfortably. But yes, ultimately, you're choosing between my world and attempting to navigate this storm alone." Put that way, it wasn't really a choice at all. Roman knew it. I knew it. The question was whether I could accept the loss of independence that came with accepting his protection. "I need air," I said abruptly. "Can we go somewhere that isn't your penthouse or your office? Somewhere I can think?" Roman studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Salvatore, take us to the estate." "The estate?" I questioned. "My house outside the city, where I go when I need distance from everything." His hand found mine. "Where we can have privacy and space, and you can make your decisions without pressure." The drive took 90 minutes, leaving the city's crush behind for increasingly rural roads. Trees lined the highway, their autumn colors brilliant against blue sky. I watched the landscape change, feeling the tension in my shoulders ease with each mile between us and Manhattan's chaos. The estate, when we finally arrived, took my breath away. A sprawling stone mansion sat on what had to be 50 acres, surrounded by manicured gardens and natural woodlands. Classical Italian architecture with modern amenities, every detail speaking of wealth that spanned generations rather than being newly acquired. "My grandfather built this," Roman said as we pulled up the circular drive. "When he first came to America. It's been in the family for 70 years. Inside was even more impressive. Soaring ceilings, original artwork, furniture that managed to be both elegant and comfortable. But it was the warmth that surprised me. Unlike the penthouse's sleek modernity, this place felt lived in, loved. Photographs lined the mantel, Roman with his parents, with people who had to be siblings or cousins, with an older man whose features echoed Roman's own. "Your grandfather?" I asked, pointing to that last photo. "Yes, he died when I was 15, but he taught me everything important before he went." Roman's voice carried affection I'd rarely heard from him. "He used to say that power without purpose is just violence, but power with purpose can change the world. And is that what you're doing? Changing the world?" "I'm protecting my piece of it, making sure my family's legacy endures, ensuring those under my protection can live safely." He turned to me. "And now that includes you." A housekeeper appeared, an older woman with kind eyes who greeted Roman with obvious affection, and me with warm curiosity. "Maria," she introduced herself, insisting I must be hungry after the drive and ushering us toward a dining room where lunch was already being prepared. The meal was simple but perfect. Fresh pasta with vegetables from the estate's gardens, bread still warm from the oven, wine that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Roman and Maria chatted easily about estate maintenance and upcoming repairs, their comfortable rapport revealing a side of him I hadn't seen before. This was Roman at home, relaxed in a way he never was in the city. His jacket came off, his tie loosened, his usual rigid control softening into something more human. He laughed at Maria's stories about his childhood mishaps, teased her about her matchmaking attempts with various relatives, showed genuine warmth that transformed his severe features. After lunch, he took me on a tour of the grounds. The gardens were stunning despite the late season. Sculptured hedges, marble fountains, flower beds transitioning from summer blooms to autumn colors. We walked in comfortable silence, his hand occasionally brushing mine, his presence steady beside me. "I come here when the city gets too loud," he said, as we paused beside a fountain featuring a marble mermaid. "When I need to remember who I am beyond the business and the violence and the constant calculations." "Who are you here?" "Just Roman Castellano. Grandson of Giuseppe Castellano, who crossed an ocean with nothing and built something lasting. Son of Antonio and Isabella, who taught me that strength and compassion aren't opposites. Brother to Sophia, who died too young but lived fiercely while she had time." His voice roughened slightly on his sister's name. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you'd lost a sister." "She was killed when I was 23, caught in crossfire during a territorial dispute that had nothing to do with her." His jaw tightened. "That's when I learned that being powerful means nothing if you can't protect those you love. That's when I stopped being my father's son and became what I needed to be to ensure no one could hurt my family again." Understanding dawned. "That's why you're so protective, why you need control." Losing Sophia broke something in me. Or perhaps fixed something. Showed me that sentiment without strength is useless. That caring about people means being strong enough to defend them against any threat. He turned to face me fully. "I care about you, Rachel, more than I've cared about anyone since Sophia. And I will not lose you the way I lost her." The raw honesty in his voice made my throat tighten. This wasn't the calculated crime boss or the dangerous protector. This was a man who'd suffered loss and transformed it into determination to never be helpless again. "You barely know me," I whispered. "I know enough. I know you're brave and intelligent, and stronger than you realize. I know you face your fears rather than hide from them. I know you care deeply about protecting innocent people, even at cost to yourself. His hands framed my face. I know that when I look at you, I see someone worth protecting, worth claiming, worth keeping. Roman. His mouth covered mine, swallowing whatever protest or agreement I'd been about to voice. The kiss was different from the brief touches we'd shared before. Deeper, hungrier, weighted with all the desire we'd been dancing around for weeks. His hand slid into my hair, tilting my head to deepen the kiss, and I surrendered to it. Surrendered to him. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. "Stay," he murmured. "Not just today. Not just until Nathan's trial. Stay with me. Be mine completely." "I'm scared," I admitted. Scared of depending on someone again. Scared of losing myself in another relationship. Scared that what feels like protection might become another cage. "Then I'll prove the difference every day. I'll show you that being mine means being cherished, not controlled, empowered, not diminished." His voice was fierce. "I swear to you, Rachel, you will never be less than you are in this moment. Only more, stronger, safer, loved." Loved. He'd said it so casually, as if it were obvious fact, rather than monumental declaration. "You love me?" My voice cracked slightly. "Yes." No hesitation. "I've been falling since that first night when you walked into my restaurant and claimed my table with desperate courage. Every day since has only deepened it. The way you analyze financial records with the same focus you probably gave beloved novels. The way you care about protecting others even when you're the one in danger. The way you've adapted to my world without losing yourself in it." His thumb traced my lower lip. "Yes, Rachel. I love you. And I'm asking you to love me back." I should have said yes immediately. Should have fallen into the safety and certainty he offered. But honesty required more than easy acceptance. "I'm not sure what I feel," I admitted. "I know I'm attracted to you. I know I feel safer with you than I ever have with anyone else. I know these past weeks have fundamentally changed me in ways I'm still processing. But love..." I paused, searching for truth. I thought I loved Nathan once. My judgment was so flawed then. How can I trust what I feel now? "Because what you felt for Nathan was based on illusion, the person he pretended to be. What you feel for me is based on truth. You've seen the worst of me, Rachel. The violence, the control, the darkness. And you're still here, still looking at me like I'm something other than a monster." His smile was slight, vulnerable. "If you can accept the worst and still want to stay, then what you feel is real." The logic was sound, but accepting it meant accepting everything. The criminal empire, the dangerous connections, the violence that would always lurk beneath Roman's polished surface. It meant choosing his world permanently, becoming someone I'd never imagined being. "I need time," I said finally. "Not weeks or months, just days. To process everything that's happened. To figure out what I actually want versus what feels safe in the moment." "How long?" 3 days. Let me stay here, in this place where you're most yourself. Let me see who Roman Castellano really is when he's not being the powerful mob boss. Then I'll give you my answer." He studied me for a long moment, something like respect dawning in his expression. 3 days. But you stay here, on the estate, where I know you're safe. And you let me prove that being mine is exactly what you need." Agreed. His kiss sealed the bargain, and I let myself sink into it. Whatever decision I ultimately made, I could allow myself this moment, this connection, this glimpse of what staying might mean. When we returned to the house, Maria had prepared the guest room, a beautiful space with windows overlooking the gardens and a bed that looked impossibly comfortable. But as she finished showing me around, Roman appeared in the doorway. "She'll be staying in my room," he said simply. Maria's eyebrows rose, but she nodded with a knowing smile. "Of course, Mr. Roman. I'll move her things." "Roman," I protested once Maria had gone. "I said I needed time. To think. Not to sleep alone in a room down the hall when you've been in my bed for days." He crossed to me, his hands settling on my waist. "I promised not to pressure you for an answer. I didn't promise to make it easy to remember why you think you need time. That's not fair." "Nothing about this is fair, Kara. Fair would be you never meeting Nathan Pierce. Fair would be you never needing my protection in the first place. But we deal with what is, not what's fair." He pulled me closer, his voice dropping intimately. "And what is that you fit perfectly in my arms, that you sleep better when I'm holding you, that your body knows what your mind is still questioning." He was right, damn him. Every night in his bed had brought deeper sleep than I'd experienced in years. His presence had become a comfort I'd been reluctant to acknowledge. 3 days, I reminded him. 3 days, he agreed. But 3 days with full honesty between us. No more hiding behind practical concerns or fear of dependence. Just truth about what you want and what I'm offering. That night, lying in Roman's bed at the estate with his arms around me and moonlight streaming through the windows, I let myself imagine what staying might look like. Mornings in this house, evenings in the city, a life split between 2 worlds, safety and luxury, and a man who looked at me like I was precious. But also violence lurking beneath the surface, connections to criminals, a world where problems were solved with threats and money and occasionally blood. Could I accept that? Could I become someone who lived in that reality without losing the parts of myself I valued most? 3 days to decide. 3 days to determine if Roman Castellano's cage was gilded enough to make captivity feel like freedom. 3 days to figure out if what I felt was love, or merely desperate gratitude for being saved. Roman's breathing deepened into sleep, but I lay awake, watching the moon trace its path across the sky. Tomorrow I would begin my evaluation in earnest, would push Roman to show me everything, the good and the bad, the tender and the violent, the man he was, and the monster he could become. And at the end of 3 days, I would make the most important choice of my life. Stay and become his, with all that entailed, or leave and face whatever came next alone. The decision shouldn't have been difficult. But lying there in his arms, feeling safer than I'd felt in years, I already knew which way I was leaning, and that terrified me more than anything Nathan had ever done. The first morning at the estate began with sunlight streaming through gauzy curtains and the scent of coffee drifting from somewhere below. Roman was already awake, propped against the headboard with his phone in hand, but unlike the tense focus I'd grown accustomed to seeing in the city, his posture was relaxed, almost peaceful. "Good morning," he murmured, setting the phone aside as I stirred. "Maria's made breakfast. Real breakfast. Not the coffee and bagel you usually grab. You've been monitoring my eating habits? I've been noticing everything about you since the moment you walked into my restaurant." His hand traced lazy patterns on my shoulder. "It's what I do. Observe, catalog, remember. How else would I know you prefer your coffee with just a splash of cream? That you unconsciously bite your lower lip when you're concentrating? That you touch your collarbone when you're nervous?" The casual recitation of details I'd never consciously revealed was both flattering and slightly unnerving. "That's surveillance, not affection." "It's both. I surveil threats and opportunities. I notice details about people I care for." He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "With you, it started as assessment and became fascination. Now it's simply how I love you, by knowing everything." There was that word again. Love. He wielded it with such casual certainty, as if the emotion were as simple as possession. Perhaps for him it was. Breakfast on the terrace was indeed elaborate. Fresh fruit, pastries, eggs prepared 3 different ways, and bread that Maria proudly announced she'd baked at dawn. Roman ate with surprising appetite, his usual controlled portions abandoned in favor of genuinely enjoying the meal. "You're different here," I observed, watching him laugh at something Maria said as she refilled his coffee. "More relaxed, more human. The city requires a certain mask. Power, control, calculated intimidation. Here, I can set that aside." He reached across the table to take my hand. "This is who I am when I'm not being what the world needs me to be. This is the man I'm offering you, Rachel. Not just the dangerous protector, but the person beneath. And if I can't separate them, if accepting one means accepting both, then you accept both. I won't pretend the violence doesn't exist, or that my world is safe and normal. But I will promise that you'll always have this refuge, that no matter what darkness I wade through in the city, I'll wash it away before I touch you." The poetry in his words surprised me. This man who ordered surveillance and dismantled enemies with clinical precision also spoke of washing away darkness before touching me, as if I were something sacred to be protected from his own nature. After breakfast, Roman took me to his study, a room I hadn't seen during yesterday's tour. Unlike his city office with its modern minimalism, this space was warm and personal. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves held volumes in Italian and English, ranging from philosophy to history to what appeared to be first editions of classic literature. A massive desk dominated one corner, but comfortable reading chairs and a worn leather sofa suggested this was as much sanctuary as workspace. "My grandfather's collection," Roman explained, gesturing to the books. He believed that a man who controlled territory but couldn't appreciate beauty was merely a thug. He taught me to value art, literature, music, to understand that power without culture is hollow. I moved to the shelves, running my fingers along leather spines. Dante, Machiavelli, Marcus Aurelius, but also Fitzgerald, Hemingway, and surprisingly, a well-worn copy of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. "You read Austen?" I couldn't keep the surprise from my voice. My mother loved her, used to read passages aloud during dinner, insisting that understanding relationships required understanding people. Elizabeth Bennet's Pride and Darcy's Prejudice both had to evolve before they could be together. He moved behind me, his hands settling on my waist. I always identified with Darcy. Powerful, misunderstood, certain of his worth, but incapable of expressing emotion properly until he met someone who challenged him to be better. "Are you saying I'm your Elizabeth Bennet?" "I'm saying you make me want to be better than I am. To prove that beneath the cold calculations and necessary violence, there's a man worthy of someone like you." His lips brushed my temple. "My mother would have loved you. Your intelligence, your courage, your refusal to be cowed by power." The mention of his mother brought an unexpected lump to my throat. "Tell me about her, about your family." For the next hour, Roman did exactly that. He spoke of his mother Isabella, a teacher who'd fallen in love with a mob boss, but insisted on maintaining her own identity and values. Of his father Antonio, who'd built an empire but always came home for dinner, who'd read bedtime stories and attended school plays despite running one of the city's most powerful organizations. And of Sophia, his younger sister, who'd been studying medicine when she was killed. "She wanted to save lives," Roman said quietly, pain evident despite the years that had passed. "Hated everything about our family business, but loved us anyway. She was going to be a surgeon, was going to do something meaningful with her life beyond the violence that defined ours." "How old was she?" 21. Caught in crossfire during a restaurant shooting that had nothing to do with her." His jaw tightened. "I was supposed to meet her there. Was running late because of a meeting. If I'd been on time, if I'd been there, you might have been killed too, I interrupted gently. Or you might have saved her. Or nothing would have changed. You can't know, Roman. Survivor's guilt is understandable, but it's not rational. No, but it's motivating. He turned to face me fully. After Sophia died, I made a promise. No more innocent casualties. No more collateral damage. Anyone I go after chose this life, accepted its risks. But civilians, people just trying to live their ordinary lives, they're off limits. Always. Is that why you protected me? Because of Sophia? Partially. You reminded me of her. Intelligent, principled, caught in something you never asked for. He cupped my face gently. But it became more than that. Became about you specifically, not just what you represented. You're not a replacement for my sister, Rachel. You're someone I've chosen to protect because losing you would break something in me that's only just starting to heal. The raw honesty in his voice made my chest tight. This wasn't practiced seduction or calculated manipulation. This was genuine vulnerability from a man who rarely allowed himself to be vulnerable. Show me the rest, I said impulsively. Not just the good parts. Show me what you do, how you operate. I need to understand all of it before I can decide. Roman studied me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, full transparency. But remember, you asked for this, Kara. Don't blame me if you don't like what you see. He made a call, speaking rapidly in Italian. Within 30 minutes, Marco arrived with a laptop and a thick folder. Roman set them on his desk, gesturing for me to join him. This is what I am, he said simply, opening the laptop. This is how I maintain power and protect what's mine. For the next several hours, he walked me through his operations with brutal honesty. The legitimate businesses that provided cover and income, restaurants, construction companies, import-export firms. The less legitimate enterprises, gambling operations, protection rackets, money laundering services for other criminal organizations. He showed me surveillance footage of competitors being warned off his territory, financial records documenting payments to police and politicians, photographs of men who'd challenged his authority and subsequently disappeared. He didn't sugarcoat or justify, simply presented the reality of his world with clinical detachment. This is what keeps you safe, he said, pointing to a map showing his territory and the territories of rival organizations. Every piece of this, every compromise and threat and payoff, ensures that no one can touch you, that Nathan Pierce stays in prison or dies there, that the Volkovs can't reach you, that you can sleep peacefully because I've made it too costly for anyone to threaten what's mine. People die because of this, I said, my voice steady despite the churning in my stomach. Rivals, witnesses, anyone who gets in your way. People die because they chose this life and its risks. I don't kill innocents, Rachel. I told you that. But men who deal in violence understand that violence can come for them. He closed the laptop. If this is too much. If you can't accept what I am, tell me now. I won't force you to stay in a world that horrifies you. I should have been horrified. Should have recoiled from the evidence of extortion, violence, corruption. But instead I found myself thinking practically, analytically. This was the system that had saved me when legal channels failed. This was the power that had made Nathan's stalking stop when police couldn't or wouldn't help. I'm not horrified, I said slowly. I'm processing. You're not a good man by conventional standards, Roman. You've done terrible things. But you've also protected me when no one else would. Given me safety I couldn't find anywhere else. And you're honest about it, not pretending to be something you're not hiding the darkness. Is honesty about monstrosity enough? I don't know yet. That's why I needed these 3 days. He nodded, accepting my uncertainty. Then let's continue. You wanted transparency. I'll give you everything. The second day brought an unexpected visitor. Dmitry Volkov arrived mid-morning, his expensive car pulling up the drive with an entourage of security that rivaled Roman's own. I watched from an upstairs window as Roman greeted him with cold civility, the two men exchanging words I couldn't hear before disappearing into the study. Maria appeared at my elbow, her expression worried. Mr. Roman doesn't usually conduct business here. This must be important. Should I be concerned? Mr. Roman will protect you. He always protects what's his. She patted my arm. But perhaps stay upstairs until Mr. Volkov leaves. These men, they play dangerous games. I had no intention of following that advice. Instead, I positioned myself in the library adjacent to the study. The door cracked just enough to hear raised voices as the conversation grew heated. Inexcusable breach of protocol, Castellano. Pierce worked for me, which means his actions reflect on my organization. Pierce's obsession with his ex-fiancée had nothing to do with your business, Dmitry. It was personal pathology, not professional failing. Personal pathology that led to him embezzling $200,000 and taking hostages in a public library. The media attention is already causing problems. Federal agents are sniffing around my operations because one of my accountants went insane. Then perhaps you should have better screening processes. Roman's voice was dangerously quiet. Don't blame me for your employees' instability. I'm not blaming you. I'm warning you. A pause. Pierce claims you've taken his ex-fiancée, that she's living with you, working for you. Is this true? My breath caught. Roman's response was immediate and absolute. Rachel Morrison is under my protection. That's all you need to know. Protection suggests she's valuable, useful. What does she know, Castellano? What did Pierce tell her about my operations? Nothing that poses any threat to you. She's a librarian, not an informant. Then why protect her so visibly? Why make her yours in a way that draws attention? Dmitry's voice sharpened. Unless she has information you're planning to use against me. My reasons for protecting Rachel are personal, not strategic. She means something to me beyond her connection to Pierce. Roman's voice carried warning. And she's off limits, Dmitry. Completely. You touch her, you threaten her, you even look at her wrong, and we'll have a war neither of us wants. Silence stretched for long seconds. Then Dmitry laughed, the sound without humor. You're in love with her. Roman Castellano, the Ice King who's never shown interest in women beyond brief physical transactions, is in love with an ordinary librarian. Another pause. This is a weakness, my friend. A vulnerability your enemies will exploit. Let them try. The absolute confidence in Roman's voice sent shivers down my spine. Anyone who touches Rachel dies, immediately and without mercy. Make sure that message reaches everyone who might be tempted. Consider it delivered. Footsteps approached the study door. But Castellano, love makes men do stupid things. Makes them vulnerable in ways power can't protect against. I hope she's worth the risk. She is. I retreated quickly to the library's far corner, positioning myself with a book as if I'd been reading all along. Moments later, I heard the front door open and close, followed by cars departing down the drive. Roman appeared in the library doorway, his expression hard. You heard. Most of it. And you declared war on the Russian mob if they touch me. That's intense. That's reality. You're mine, Rachel. Anyone who threatens what's mine becomes my enemy. He moved into the room, his posture controlled, but tension evident in his shoulders. Dmitry won't move against you. He's too pragmatic to start a war over curiosity. But he'll be watching, looking for any sign you're a threat to his operations. Am I a threat? Not unless you choose to be. You could testify about Nathan's work, about the financial records you saw while doing our research. could become a valuable witness for federal prosecutors. His gaze was steady, assessing. But that would require you to enter witness protection, to disappear completely, to leave behind everything, including me. The implication was clear. Staying with Roman meant staying silent about what I knew. Choosing him meant choosing his world's code of silence. I won't testify, I said quietly. I'm not interested in helping feds build cases. I just wanted to survive Nathan. The rest is beyond your concern, beyond my responsibility. I'm not an informant or a vigilante. I'm just trying to figure out how to live after everything that's happened. And what role do I play in that life? He moved closer, his hands settling on my waist. Protector? Provider? Or something more? That's what these 3 days are supposed to help me figure out. You're running out of time, Kara. Tomorrow is your deadline. He was right. 2 days had passed in this strange limbo of domesticity and dangerous revelations. Tomorrow I would have to choose. Stay with Roman and accept everything that entailed, or leave and rebuild my life independently. That night, as we lay in bed with moonlight painting silver across the sheets, Roman was unusually quiet. His arms held me, but loosely, as if he were already preparing for the possibility of letting go. Tell me something, I said into the darkness. If I choose to leave tomorrow, will you really let me go? Long silence. Then, yes, but I'll ensure you're protected from a distance. Security you won't see, resources you won't know about, but always there. Because even if you're not mine in name, you'll still be mine to protect. That's not letting go, Roman. I don't know how to let go of you, but I can love you enough to respect your choice, even if it destroys me. His arms tightened slightly. Does that answer your question? It did, in ways that made my chest ache. This dangerous, powerful man who controlled a criminal empire with ruthless efficiency would let me walk away if I asked. Would love me enough to give me freedom, even though it went against every possessive instinct he had. The third morning arrived with autumn rain pattering against the windows. I woke alone, Roman's side of the bed already cold. A note on his pillow in bold handwriting. Take your time. I'm in the study when you're ready. R. I showered and dressed slowly, my mind running through every moment of the past 3 days. The vulnerability Roman had shown in sharing his family history. The honesty about his criminal operations. The protection he'd offered without demanding anything in return beyond my consideration. And beneath it all, the undeniable attraction and growing affection. The safety I felt in his arms. The way he looked at me like I was precious and powerful simultaneously. The recognition that he saw me, truly saw me, in ways Nathan never had. Maria found me in the kitchen, nursing coffee and staring at rain-soaked gardens. Thinking day, she observed, setting fresh pastries before me. Mr. Roman is same. He's been in study since dawn, just sitting, waiting. Has he told you why I'm here? What decision I'm making? Don't need telling. I see how he looks at you. Like his mother looked at his father. Like your air he needs to breathe. She patted my hand. But decision is yours. Just remember, good men are rare. Men who are both good and strong, even rarer. Mr. Roman has darkness, yes, but also great capacity for love, for loyalty, for protecting what matters. After she left, I made my way to the study. Roman was exactly as Maria had described, sitting in one of the leather chairs, staring at nothing, tension evident in every line of his body, despite his stillness. Rachel. He stood as I entered, his expression carefully neutral. Have you decided? I have questions first. Ask anything. If I stay, what does that actually look like? Day to day, month to month, do I work? Do I have my own money? Do I maintain relationships outside our household? You do whatever you want professionally. Work at another library if you choose. Or I'll find you a position that uses your analytical skills in my legitimate businesses. You'll have access to accounts in your name. Money that's yours, not just mine. And yes, you maintain whatever relationships you want. I'm not Nathan, Rachel. I don't isolate you to control you. What about when your work gets dangerous? When rivals threaten or violence becomes necessary? You're sheltered from it as much as possible. But I won't lie and say you'll never see the darkness. Being with me means occasional exposure to my world's realities. I can protect you, but I can't pretend the danger doesn't exist. And if I want to leave? If months or years from now I decide this isn't working? His jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. Then we discuss it like adults. I'd fight to change your mind, to address whatever problems drove you away. But ultimately, I'd let you go. With financial support and continued protection, but I'd let you go. You're saying I'd still be yours to protect, even if I'm not yours to hold. Yes. No apology, no elaboration, just truth. I moved to the window, watching rain create rivers down the glass. Everything he'd shown me over these 3 days pointed to the same conclusion. Roman Castellano was exactly who he'd always claimed to be. Dangerous, powerful, ruthless with enemies, but capable of profound tenderness toward those he loved. His protection came with strings, but they were strings I could live with. Unlike Nathan's suffocating control, Roman's possession felt like freedom paradoxically gained through belonging. I'm scared, I admitted, still facing the window. Scared of depending on someone again. Scared that this intensity between us will fade or transform into something unhealthy. Scared that I'm choosing comfort over independence. Fear is reasonable. This is a big choice with permanent consequences. He moved behind me, not touching but close enough that I could feel his warmth. But consider this. You've already been living with me for weeks. Already integrated into my life, my operations, my protection. The question isn't whether you'll stay, Rachel. The question is whether you'll acknowledge what's already true. He was right. I'd been his in all practical ways since that first night at the restaurant. The formality of deciding just made explicit what had already happened organically. I have conditions, I said, turning to face him. Name them. First, I maintain my own bank account with money I can access independently. I'm not comfortable being completely financially dependent. Done. I'll have my lawyer set up accounts in your name tomorrow. Money that's yours, regardless of our relationship status. Second, I want to continue working. Maybe not at the library given the media attention, but something meaningful. Your offer of a position analyzing data or managing your charitable foundation. I want that. Want to contribute. Not just exist as a protected pet. You'll be invaluable in either role. Or both, if you prefer. Your intelligence is wasted on anything less. Third, Maria and any staff are vetted by me too. I won't live surrounded by people I can't trust. You'll have final approval on anyone who works in our home. Your comfort and safety are paramount. Fourth, my friends and chosen family are off limits to your manipulation or investigation. If I rebuild relationships with people from my old life, you don't interfere. Agreed, with one caveat. If someone poses a genuine threat to you, I reserve the right to address it. But I won't control your friendships arbitrarily. And finally, when your work requires violence or activities I can't be part of, you wash it away before you touch me. Like you said, I get the man, not the monster. I can accept that the monster exists, but I need the man with me. Always. He moved closer, his hands framing my face. The monster handles my world. The man comes home to you. You'll never have to see or touch the darkness, Rachel. I swear it. Then yes, I'm staying. I'm choosing you, Roman. All of you. The dangerous protector, and the man who reads Austen and mourns his sister. The criminal and the grandson who honors his family. I'm staying. His kiss was fierce, possessive, weighted with all the emotion he'd been restraining. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. Mine, he murmured. Finally, completely mine. Yours, I agreed, though I reserve the right to be difficult about it sometimes. His laugh was genuine, joyful. I'd expect nothing less. That evening we returned to the city. The penthouse felt different now, not a temporary refuge, but home. Maria from the estate had come with us, at my request, along with 2 additional staff members I'd approved. The space that had felt cold and impersonal when I'd first arrived now felt like ours. Roman pulled me into the master bedroom, closing the door behind us with deliberate intent. We've been sharing a bed for weeks, he said, backing me toward it slowly. But we've never properly consummated this relationship, never made official what we both knew was inevitable. Are you asking permission? I'm telling you what's about to happen, and giving you one final opportunity to say no. His eyes were dark, hungry. After tonight, there's no ambiguity. You're mine, in every possible way. I've been yours since you carried me into this apartment that first night, I admitted. I just needed time to accept it. And now? Now I'm ready to stop fighting inevitability. What followed was everything I'd been denying myself. His hands learning every curve, his mouth mapping territories I'd kept defended, his body claiming mine with a thoroughness that left no doubt about his devotion. This wasn't Nathan's fumbling urgency or entitled possession. This was Roman Castellano showing me exactly what belonging to him meant. Being worshipped and claimed simultaneously, treasured and owned, cherished and consumed. When we finally lay tangled together, sweat-slicked and satisfied, his arms came around me with fierce protectiveness. I love you, he murmured against my hair. And I will spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice. I love you too, I admitted, the words feeling right despite their terrifying permanence. Even though you're complicated and dangerous and probably bad for me in conventional ways. The best things usually are. 6 months later, Nathan Pierce was found dead in his cell. Officially, the cause was suicide by hanging. Unofficially, everyone knew the Volkovs had reached him, eliminating their liability with brutal efficiency. I felt nothing when Roman delivered the news. No grief, no satisfaction, just distant acknowledgement that a chapter had finally, definitively closed. I'd taken over management of Roman's charitable foundation, discovering I had a talent for directing resources toward meaningful causes. The work was fulfilling in ways my library job had never been, combining my analytical skills with opportunities to genuinely help people. Roman had been right. My intelligence had been wasted on reshelving books. We'd married quietly 3 months after my decision to stay, a small ceremony at the estate, with only family and close associates. No media, no announcement, just the formal recognition of what we'd both known since that night in his restaurant. We belonged to each other. Mrs. Chen, my former landlord, now lived in a comfortable apartment Roman had arranged, her rent paid indefinitely. Sarah, recovered from her gunshot wound, had accepted a substantial settlement and moved to New Jersey with her daughter, far from the memories of that terrible day. The library had hired additional security and trauma counselors, changes Roman had quietly funded. His world remained dangerous, violent at its edges. But true to his promise, he washed away the darkness before touching me. When he came home to the penthouse, to me, he was simply Roman, my husband, my protector, my partner in building something meaningful from the ashes of trauma. We stood on the terrace overlooking the city, his arms around me from behind, watching lights glitter in the gathering dusk. Regrets? He asked, a question that had become ritual between us. None, I answered truthfully. You? Only that I didn't find you sooner. That you had to suffer through Nathan before finding safety with me. Maybe I needed that suffering to appreciate this, to understand the difference between possession and protection. Perhaps. His lips brushed my temple, but I'll spend the rest of our lives ensuring you never doubt which you have with me. A year ago, I'd been a frightened woman fleeing a stalker, desperate enough to steal a Mafia boss's restaurant reservation. Now I was Rachel Castellano, wife to one of the city's most powerful men, protected and cherished in ways I'd never imagined possible. The choice I'd made that rainy morning at the estate had changed everything, had transformed me from victim to partner, from someone who survived through hiding to someone who thrived under protection. Roman's world wasn't safe or conventional, but it was ours. And standing there in his arms, watching our city spread beneath us like a kingdom, I knew I'd made the right choice. Being his had set me free in ways that leaving never could have. And I would spend the rest of my life defending what we'd built together. This imperfect, dangerous, impossibly perfect love.